It's time for Windows Weekly. Paul Thurrott and Mary Jo Foley are here. And as always, at the end of the year, well, at least for the last couple of years, Microsoft's Chief Marketing Officer, Chris Capossela, will join us. He comes bearing gifts and lots of news. Stay tuned. Windows Weekly is next.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is Windows Weekly with Paul Thurrott and Mary Jo Foley. Episode 600, recorded Wednesday, December 19th, 2018. Merry ChrisCapmas. Windows Weekly is brought to you by Rocket Mortgage from Quicken Loans. Introducing Rate Shield Approval. If you're in the market to buy a home, Rate Shield Approval locks up your rate for up to 90 days while you shop. It's a real game changer. Learn more and get started at rocketmortgage.com/windows. And by Molecule. Molecule is the world's first molecular air purifier that reduces symptoms for allergy and asthma sufferers. For $75 off your first order, visit molecule.com and enter the promo code TWIT75. It's time for Windows Weekly, our 600th episode, the last episode of 2018. I feel like we should do something special on this Windows Weekly. Paul Thurrott. He's at thurrott.com, THURROTT.com, and Mary Jo Foley at allaboutmicrosoft.com. And it looks like you've got a little Christmas elf in between you.
Hi, everyone.
He's the ghost of Microsoft's present.
Oh, and he's wearing a Windows 95 sweat, one of the coveted Windows 95 sweaters.
Yes, the ugly sweater. I had to bring it. I can stand up and you can see it. And it's
Chris Capossela, Chief Marketing Officer, CMO at Microsoft. It is an honor to have you on. This has become a yearly tradition.
It has. I think, is this number 3?
I think so.
Yeah, it is.
It's been fun.
It's a huge honor. Really Thank you, Chris.
It's my pleasure.
We're thrilled to have you. And now I'll step back and let Paul and Mary Jo Foley
heard the questions.
Introduce their congressional hearing.
Right. Are you now, or have you ever been a communist sympathizer?
Exactly.
So Chris is always a welcome guest because among marketing CMOs in the world, he is the most forthright and the most down-to-earth and authentic. And it really, normally I would not put a marketing, person from a company we cover on the show because, what are they going to say? They're going to say good stuff.
Enough nonsense as it is.
Yeah. Yeah, you guys are bad enough. But Chris is great, and the chance to talk to him and really address some of the things we've been talking about all year long is really welcome. So thank you. You're a brave man. You're a brave man.
It's my pleasure.
You probably hear us sometimes when you're listening saying, we got to remember to ask Chris that on the show.
Oh, yeah. I do.
I hope you were taking notes because we forgot to do that.
Yeah, we've long forgotten all that.
I brought some ideas. Good. But I think one thing that's kind of fun is that the preparation for this is quite in November, Mary Jo direct messages me on Twitter and says, "Hey, how about December 19th? Are you game?" And that's kind of it. It's not very
it's not Hollywood, my friend.
It's not very scheduled, and we don't really, as you're going to tell from what happens next, we don't really prep. We don't
right.
Yeah.
Chris, reading from the notes we submitted to you ahead of time, could you look at number 7?
Which is kind of nice. It's just very it's kind of unplugged.
It is.
It's in the family now. It's a family.
You are.
It's a family.
Speaking of that, I will say, just to make sure you guys go easy on me, I do have 2 of these sweaters ready to go, one for Mary Jo and one for Paul. And I realized I only brought 2.
No, I'm not allowed to accept bribes, so it's fair.
I am. I'll take
we are, though.
No, I don't want you. No, that would be no. I am not. I am not allowed to accept any backsheesh.
Wow.
So you guys, you enjoy, Paul.
Yeah, we have those. We thought
I'm jealous.
An ugly Windows sweater, it would be the Windows Weekly.
Are those sold out? Are those available on the store? Where can you get those?
We don't even sell the things. It was frankly just a fun, larky kind of thing that the Windows marketing team...
I have said for years, you guys need to sell swag. I don't understand why you don't, and I hope this proves that this stuff can be popular.
I'm feeling like I'm failing you already on this call. The,
it's basic marketing, Chris.
I I know. I will say to you that at E3 this time, we sold Xbox swag for the first time ever, and it was crazy popular. And so we continue to sell a bunch of Xbox stuff. I think no one set out to sort of say maybe we should sell Windows swag. It was more to be a fun, just kind of a fun marketing thing for our fans. But I'll tell you, the reaction has just been off the charts. It's the most popular tweet we've ever tweeted on Windows, the Windows handle. It's crazy. So, maybe we have to
car wearing one.
Yeah.
Hey, if the fashion plate wears one,
that's right.
You made it then.
I know.
You know what? So you missed one big opportunity with this, though.
Look at that.
Somebody should have worn the ugly sweater and done the sexy Bill Gates pose on the desk wearing it.
Well, this is pretty close.
I like that.
This, the picture I mean, the one with him. It's not really him, but
yeah.
If I laid it across my desk, it would collapse.
That is such a great idea. Oh man, what a great sweater!
It is a good idea.
Thank you.
So yeah, we might have to revisit our what we sell as merchandise in addition to the Xbox stuff.
How many did you give away, though? I mean, you must have given...
It's not much. It's not many. In fact, when I tried to get some for the show, it wasn't actually that easy.
They had to knit new ones?
Yeah, we're down to very large sizes. And so, anyways, we'll figure it out.
Good news.
Bill Gates is in the cellar knitting away.
It usually works the other way around, where the programmer sizes are the first to go, the triple XLs. And then all they have left is ladies small.
But we're learning. We have plenty of Surface product for holiday sales, which is great. But we didn't know the Windows ugly sweater was gonna. That is the gift, I guess, this holiday
hysterical.
that I got wrong.
My ugly sweaters, yeah.
Ah, gosh.
It's the thing this year.
Yeah.
Paul, Mary Jo, you take over. Yeah. I'm sorry. That's Mary Jo.
Before Mary Jo is arrested.
Who lives in New York? Quick guess.
Sorry, guys.
Go ahead. You guys take it over.
We wanted to have you start, Chris, the way you have typically for us in the past. A quick, what do you think are the biggest successes and failures of the year? No pressure,
Yeah,
just
great.
something
Right.
That's good. Well, we're already off to a much more well-orchestrated conversation from when we usually just sit around and say, so here we are. Who's going to start? So thank you for that. I think in the past we have talked about what are some of the big sort of successes and big learnings or mistakes we made during the year. This time I thought I would. And first of all, you guys continue to do just, I think, a great job covering so much of the stuff that the company is up to. I think just this week, Mary Jo, you posted something that sort of talked about this Microsoft becoming this interesting balance between sort of practicality and what was the word you used? Sort of not vision, inspiration, or
like aspiration.
Aspiration, yeah.
Right.
And that's not a bad. I think that's actually a pretty good way to look at it. I thought this year for me there were kind of two or three big themes that are unusual or have emerged as bigger deals than I would say in the past. And then I thought I would share maybe a handful of what I would consider kind of hidden gem products that maybe haven't reached everybody's radar screen yet. And so I'd love to share those, but interrupt anytime and, we can go however you guys want it to go. On the broad, super high level themes, I think for me, this was the year that people really started to see that open source is something that is important to the company. And, for years we've been doing small things and slowly, people who really watch the company have sort of started to see, hey, they seem to be more practical. They seem to be adopting open source. They seem to be contributing to GitHub in big numbers, et cetera. But this year with the combination of obviously the GitHub acquisition, us joining the Open Invention Network, which is sort of sets out to protect Linux, creating this thing called the Open Data Initiative with Adobe and SAP, which happened in like a period of 2 weeks. It was incredibly quick. And then, of course, recently, announcing our source project. It's pretty stunning. Like, it's hard to look at everything that's happened and not say that this is the year that open source got noticed, that Microsoft is doing a lot more in open source than we've done in the past. Azure today, we have like 40% of our VMs are now Linux VMs. So, we've been at it for a while. That doesn't happen overnight. But for me, the acquisition and the Chromium switch are probably the two big, like, wow, that doesn't happen just someone wakes up one day and says, let's go do that. That's kind of years in the making. So in some ways, one of the biggest themes is just open source.
Can we talk about that just a little bit real quick?
Yeah.
The two things that come to mind for me immediately are, with the understanding you can't announce anything or whatever, but I mean, do you see this type of thing accelerating? In other words, Microsoft being even more explicitly involved in open source in 2019 and beyond? And then looking at Microsoft Edge in particular, I think everyone on the show agrees with Microsoft's decision to go in that direction, but there's been a lot of discussion about this out in the world, about monoculture and so forth. I mean, how do you kind of view the controversy around the Microsoft Edge stuff?
Yeah, I mean, for us, first of all, I think it's hard to imagine like 2019 is next year. It's hard to imagine something bigger than GitHub and something bigger than Chromium. Right. But I think the direction will certainly absolutely continue. And so much of next year will be about delivering. So much of next year will be about proving to the GitHub fan base that we really are going to be incredibly thoughtful and careful about how we bring that technology and that incredible value forward. Right. And then, of course, it's one thing to announce we're doing something on Chromium, but let's deliver. Let's actually get things into people's hands and see what they think of it. So, in some ways, I think 2020 will be more important than 2019 from an open source perspective because the scorecard will be much clearer. Whereas 2019, I think, was much more big moves with intention. Now, everyone's going to say, okay, great, but let's see how you do. So that's what I would say there. On the controversy, it's going to be a fantastic test of the whole notion of open source, and our ability to contribute to the Chromium open source project is something that we're obviously betting on in a huge way. This is something we want to be big contributors to it. We want to have our engineering teams be able to help move that forward. And I think it's a great debate for people to have, and I understand both sides of the, hey, you don't want the world to all use one rendering platform for the web. On the other hand, you don't want developers to have to test their stuff in 3-4 different rendering platforms. And so for us, ultimately, it really comes down to what do customers want us to spend our time on, what do developers want us to spend our time on, how can we make their work, frankly, easier. And having a Edge that works on Windows 7, that works on Windows 10, that works on the Mac, that works on iOS, that works on Android, that's a really wonderful proposition. And we were on a path to do some of that, of course, with Android, Edge on Android. But now with moving to Chromium, we can do it on all of these platforms, and hopefully also bring the Chromium open source project new innovation from Microsoft, but done in an open source way. So that's what we're going to set out to try to do.
Right.
Can I throw in a Chromium Edge question too?
Yeah,
so the thing that I keep hearing back from people is, okay, so Microsoft's moving to Chromium. So what stops Edge from being just another Chromium browser? So the question keeps coming back, like, what's Edge's value proposition going to be now that it's another Chromium browser?
Yeah. Well, I think, there's a lot that we feel is really important that the browser does that hopefully can be a differentiator for us. Security is number one. And I know, Mary Jo, you're not surprised to hear me say that. But the enterprises that want to have incredible security in the browser that they use across their entire portfolio of devices is just really, really important to us. And it's something we feel like we know very well. We're very close to them and what they need. That's an area that is just super obvious to us to be able to innovate in and to do in a cross-platform way that we weren't able to do with the plan that we used to be executing on. But I do think the user experience, having multiple companies trying to innovate on what the UI is, how does Edge fit into the work that you do on a daily basis? You've seen us do all sorts of experiments with Windows 10, leveraging or borrowing from browser type UI to think about reimagining how that experience can go. We can add a lot of value way beyond the rendering engine with security, with the actual user experience. You've seen us do some things with timeline, which is actually one of my favorite features now, and being able to work from one machine to another and just pick up where you left off. That I think is a great user innovation that people who use it seem to really like it. And that's something that I don't know that anyone else would do on Windows if we weren't doing Edge. So those would be a couple of examples that I'd point to. And I think the team's really excited about it, frankly.
Nice.
Good. Okay, so open source was one sort of big theme, and it's a pretty exciting one. One that we're unbelievably excited about, but some people may be a little more cynical, and I say some people kind of meaning Paul, maybe.
Yes. Yep. All right.
And again, this is one where externally you don't necessarily see it as much as we feel it internally, is the work we've done to try to make our technology work for more human beings on the planet has been. We've taken, 2 steps forward and 1 step back. We've had some great success here and we've had some mistakes here. But this whole notion of trying to empower everybody, every person, every organization, if you want to whittle it down, you can say the technology we've built around inclusion has been, I think it's been sort of a watershed year for us. The learning tools we've been at for quite some time, the Microsoft Learning Tools, they started as a hackathon project. Now the learning tools are literally shipping in every version of Word and every version of Edge and every version of OneNote. And so kids with dyslexia and dysgraphia are, can have an experience that's a lot easier for them to learn how to read. And as we start to see Windows taking some share away from Chromebooks in the education space, even in the US, a lot of it is actually because teachers are excited about the learning tools and they want to have the learning tools for their classroom. So that's been kind of cool to see. We've added the dictation tool to them, which I personally really love, having the PC dictate content out to me. Of course, the Seeing AI app, which one of our engineers started as a hackathon project a couple of years ago. That's for vision impaired people to sort of narrate their world using their phone to just hold it up and explain what they're seeing. That's been very inspiring for people. And then just recently, of course, the thing that's probably nearest and dearest to me is this Xbox adaptive controller that the Xbox team built over 3 years. Again, started as a hackathon project with just a small team saying, hey, why do gamers who don't have great manual dexterity have to suffer through the controller that everyone else uses? Why don't we build something new? And, that's been just kind of awesome to see. And, none of these tools, the Seeing AI tool, the Learning tool, the Xbox Adaptive Controller, that none of them are going to be used by, 1 billion people compared to Word itself. But integrating them in to the tools that people use, it's very, very powerful. And so whether or not the outside world sees it or not, it's been a huge year of building more inclusive products. And we've learned, we've made some mistakes. We've learned that the data models that we feed our AI for face recognition, et cetera, have to be incredibly inclusive. There's a lot of hard problems here to solve, but open source was very visible. Inclusion, I think, was very visible to Microsoft employees. It may not have been as visible to everybody else, but for me, it's just a huge theme. And oh boy, I watched one of the Windows Weeklies a few weeks ago, and I had one of these moments. I think it was Leo who asked Paul, hey, should we show the Microsoft holiday ad?
And you said, yes, please.
Paul said something like, oh, God, no, please, no.
Well,
I'm sure
I was expecting something cringe-inducing.
No, it was awesome.
And awesome, it actually was awesome.
Right.
Yeah.
And I've been seeing
I
it.
also heard you say, right? I mean,
that was good feedback to me in that moment where Paul was saying,
I have a rich history with Microsoft advertising, so I thought something embarrassing was coming.
No, it was really, and I've been seeing it on the
app.
NFL. I've been seeing it like crazy. You obviously, you're putting it everywhere,
And Chris,
which is great.
real quick, if I could just defend myself, because apparently I was the target of that one.
You're just the Grinch. It's okay. You're the Grinch.
No, I don't want people to think
soft
I'm not.
target. It was soft target.
No. Yeah, a target-rich environment. I'm not against inclusion. I mean, my son is deaf. My mother is legally blind. The complaints I've made have been very specific about things just coming from this community and understanding it, that you're not, I don't mean you, Microsoft. I mean, a very specific feature in Windows 10 that I thought was implemented wrong, and I explained very clearly why. I mean, I'm not against inclusion. I mean,
no, you're an advocate.
No, it was more the sort of advertising discipline that I know isn't tasteful to everybody. And so when someone says, hey, see an ad,
I said,
someone says, yeah, I want to see an ad. Of course, I I live in that world, so I'm like, yeah, I want to see that.
So no, but it was that ad was awesome. It was really nice.
Kathleen Hall and the advertising team and the Xbox team did a really nice job. You, of course, didn't know that the ad was going to be about inclusion at all. It was more a reaction to, gosh, we see a lot of holiday ads. He's
like, should I show the ad? It's like, oh, no, please don't do this.
But
could we vet it first?
The nice thing about that one, of course, was we picked, rather than doing an ad that was about, selling the latest Surface, which we do those ads too, of course. The team said, gosh, we just think we have a really powerful story in the Xbox Adaptive Controller. It's sort of symbolic of an important change at the company, and et cetera, et cetera. And Owen, this young boy, had a blast filming the ad. And, he's not an actor. He's a real non-actor person who agreed to be part of it. And it turned out really beautifully. But I thought it was symbolic of this inclusion theme. And
I agree. I think that's was beautiful.
Yeah, it's good. So that would be theme number 2. Shall I move on to theme number 3, or shall I pause?
Oh, go ahead.
Does anyone have any complaints about inclusion?
Talk to Paul.
Yeah, no. We've learned a lot of this, and it is, you have to think about bringing everybody along, because too often when people hear the word inclusion, they think that if they have full control over their body, or if they're white, or if they're a man, or whatever, that this isn't for them. In fact, everything we're trying to do is, of course, involve everybody, because when you're trying to serve every person, every organization, and that is tricky. You have to find a way to bring everyone along and not alienate anybody, and that's a challenge.
Not to get too far afield here, but I mean, one of the reasons that ad was so beautiful, and you probably would appreciate, anyone who's a parent would kind of appreciate this, especially, the world is very different today than when we grew up. And a person like my son, or like the kid in that ad, who is different from other people in our age, would have been shuttled off into a room somewhere. We never would have even known he existed. And today, those people are mainstreamed. And the scenes where his friends are rooting for him and cheering for him is not some made-up holiday Hallmark thing. That's what real life is today, and that's why that's so beautiful.
Yeah, we hope. We obviously hope. I know that isolation is a real issue for people.
Sure.
Some people will say, "Hey, that's not that realistic," and other people would say, "No, for my child, it actually is realistic." So,
my son has gigantic headgear things that help him hear, and had surgery on his skull and so forth. And I wouldn't have known he existed if I had grown up with him in the 1970s. But in our case, certainly, and I've seen it just in the diversity in the school system and so forth. I mean, it's a different, I know it's not everywhere, but
perfect. Yeah.
Certainly our experience with the kid and compared to our childhood, it's just a different world.
It's also aspirational, right? The world should be like this.
Yeah, right.
Exactly.
It makes people feel good, and they see it, and maybe they will act that way next time. If they're
and it's a good message for today, certainly, given the political climate or whatever.
Yeah, that's right. I think that's right. And the interesting thing is gaming is particularly good at this, because people can, play across the internet and don't necessarily see somebody what they look like, or the fact they, and that's kind of cool too, which of course is part of why we picked the gaming scenario. So anyways, that was number 2. Number 3, I'm taking way too much time.
No, number 3, take all the time you want.
Okay, good. For me, number 3 is a subtle one, and Mary Jo picked up on it in her article. And it's this, how do I say this? It's this business model shift that has been very powerful for us around, frankly, our success being more lined up with our customers' success. Because we only get paid for Azure if somebody consumes Azure computing. If a customer buys a little bit of Azure and then doesn't really use it, then we lose, and we haven't solved a problem for them. If the customer has tremendous success with a product that they build on top of Azure and that product takes off, then they're going to be consuming a ton of Azure, and Microsoft will benefit while they benefit. And so there's this sort of soft notion of our business model being more aligned to our customer's business model than I think it's sort of ever been before. And even with something like Office, which is a user-based subscription, if you're not solving the problem for a user, they're going to stop paying for the subscription, period. And so I feel like we've seen a shift in the way customers engage with us recently, because I think there's this growing realization that we're frankly very committed. Our business model makes us more committed to their success. And there's an element of partnership and trust that seems to be building. that I think is really, really powerful. And again, it's not something you can necessarily see, which is why I bring it to the show, because I think it's kind of an interesting one for me to talk about or bring to you. But that notion of, hey, we have a responsibility to help a customer be more successful, not just a responsibility to sell a truckload of PCs to them. That's a pretty fundamental shift. You also see this shift in the stance we're trying to take around the ethical use of technology. It is kind of incredible to see the power that the technology companies have, and it's why we're seeing, of course, a lot of concern and backlash against them. And so for us, I think this is the year that we've really sort of leaned into trying to make legislative changes. And most people have no idea what I'm talking about. But, we argued in front of the Supreme Court about the way that laws should change with the way the cloud works. And this year, the Cloud Accord became a law. And that's kind of a big deal. And we're granting developers money if they will sort of pledge that they're trying to use artificial intelligence to make the earth healthier, to help with humanitarian relief, to build technology that helps with accessibility. Some people talk about this as AI for good. And, we're trying to use some of our money and our power to tell developers, hey, AI can be used for bad things and AI can be used for good things. Let's make sure, we take this sort of pledge that we are going to think about the ethics of AI. We are going to, publish a book that talks about here's what computers should do, not just what computers can do. And some people don't love this because it has us sort of standing up and saying what we really, really believe. And some people would prefer that we just provide the tech platform. And hey, I don't really want to listen to that. Just ship the good tech. But for us, we feel like it is pretty important for us to sort of say, hey, there's a responsibility that we have. We want developers to come along with us. We want our own developers to sort of take this pledge. We want other developers to do it too. And we want customers to feel like we're only going to succeed if they succeed. And frankly, it's become a differentiator for us. It's become something customers tell us, hey, this really does resonate with us. Many of our customers tell us, I'm probably going to have 2 cloud companies, and one of them is certainly going to be you. And one of them is going to be somebody else. And that's a major, major shift for us. And I know Azure doesn't get a ton of sort of ink on your show, but I think it's been transformative beyond Azure to actually the way the company behaves and thinks. And so I wanted to kind of bring that one to the fore.
You know what I'm surprised you didn't put on your list?
Yeah, tell me.
Modern life and devices.
Oh, yeah.
Because I don't think a lot of people know what that is. And you guys have been kind of quiet about it, but my understanding of it is this is your idea of making consumers kind of more loyal to Microsoft. It's been a rough few years for people who are consumer fans, I would feel safe in saying. But this seems like you guys have a plan to try to win at least some subset of consumers back.
Yeah, I think, I'm hopeful that a year from now, maybe that will be a theme that I could talk about and say, hey, maybe next year was a year that there was more there. But you guys, everything sort of we're up to, and you've seen this beginning of the introduction of the language that we're using around modern life and devices. And of course, we're going to lean heavily into the thing that we think customers view us for, and that's productivity. We're obviously not going to go create a bunch of movies and TV shows and compete with Netflix and Amazon and say, that's how we're going to be relevant to a consumer. But the devices, obviously, I think Surface has had a really, really wonderful year. I don't think it was as transformative as these major themes I was talking about. But gosh, these Surface devices, the Surface Go, the Surface Pro 6, they're having a really, really wonderful holiday. And I'll let Amy Hood, of course, talk about our earnings when the time comes. So I'm not making any sort of forward-looking statement about our earnings. But I think this was a wonderful year for our Surface hardware, for sure. And I think more broadly in 2019, I'm getting my fiscal years and calendar years confused. You'll clearly hear us talk a lot more about this notion of modern life. We feel great about gaming. We feel great about our hardware. Yusuf Mehdi and the team is working hard on the other chapters of that go along with the hardware. And so stay tuned for more in the next year on it. I don't think this year was a big year for modern life, but we've certainly done a lot of work that nobody's seen, and that'll be fun to talk about in the coming year.
Chris has become
seen a little Microsoft 365 consumer, Chris.
What is that? I have no idea. There's no such product that I know of that a customer can buy today.
Oh, not yet.
Yes, I can't confirm or deny any unannounced technology. I'm sorry.
Frank Shaw's back there going, whoosh.
Right.
Yeah.
If a gas canister rolls in your office door,
Exactly.
you'll know we're onto something.
Exactly. You obviously, again, anyone who listens to the show or reads the two of you, you guys have incredible coverage of the company. It's one of the reasons I like coming on the show is just because I listen to you most of the year, and I'm, like I've said before, I'm always like, man, 9 times out of 10, your analysis is, I think, very insightful and sort of spot on, and you clearly, have some sort of listening devices in all of our rooms, and I don't know how you do it. No, but honestly,
I cannot tell you how much this freaks me out when you talk like this.
Paul can't handle praise. It's a problem.
Yeah. I hit him on my ads. I hit him on not wanting to see my advertising.
Yep,
so I had to, I had to tell him a lot. Anyways, yeah. So that'll be fun.
Okay. Cool.
So that's it.
I want to hear your hidden jewels thing, because last year you had some weird ones on there. You had like Microsoft Stream. I was like, what?
Yeah, great.
Great. I think you had learning tools on there last year.
Yeah, I did have learning tools. Yeah. So, I'll throw a couple at you, and some of them you'll be very familiar with and sort of say, yeah, sure, we got that one. But maybe some would be a surprise. One that I would highlight is Surface Go. This is a product that, we hadn't. I think customers, when they first heard we were doing it, sort of felt like, wow, a $300 or $400 Surface product, 10-inch screen. Is it really gonna? I don't know. There was a decent amount of cynicism, and yet I think the team did a very nice job with the product. And the reviews, sort of said, wow, I expected this to be kind of mediocre or, very compromised. And the reviews were actually like, hey, this is far better than I thought. So Surface Go for us was a kind of an important step in bringing a smaller screen device, a 10-inch device, a cheaper device, but still has a decent premium feel. And one of the things we're really thrilled with is we're seeing a lot more women embrace Surface Go than we've seen women embrace some of the more popular existing product lines like the Surface Pro. And so for us, that's been actually a hidden gem of the year. It came relatively late in the year. It's obviously the middle of holidays, so we have a lot still to go. But I would say for us inside the company, that's become an important example of extending, going into spaces that maybe, on the surface of it, you don't think will work, but it seems to be working well for us. We see a lot of mobile professionals who already have maybe a premium device picking up a Surface Go as a second device that they would bring on the road for a 2-day road trip and leave their bigger machine behind. So that's been one that I would say is we're really pleased with, and it's kind of a hidden gem.
Chris, can I ask you about that one real quick? I'm sorry. I think it was 2 years ago, but whatever the time frame was when you folks introduced Surface Pro 4 and Surface Book, it seemed like there was a real push to be super premium, very expensive. Does Surface Go represent a shift of some kind? Is Microsoft, widening the market for Surface? I mean, is it because it seems like until Go, it's always been very obviously just a premium brand.
Yeah. Sorry.
No, that's it.
Great. Yes. I do think it's this interesting notion of, can you extend premium to be more affordable? And for us, there isn't a great 10-inch, Windows laptop or 2-in-1, and we're not doing it to sort of expand the Surface line. We're actually doing it to expand the Windows ecosystem. And we'd love our OEM partners, Dell, HP, Lenovo, Acer, Asus. We'd love to have Surface Go be successful enough that they say, yeah, there was really a market for a 10-inch 2-in-1 at that $400 to $500 price range. Let's go after that. Let's go scale that out. And so absolutely, the goal was to expand but expand, frankly, the Windows ecosystem. And sometimes we have to lead that where the market may not be quite as clear. And, small screens have been challenging for Windows, as we all know. And so it's right on that cusp of, is this going to be too small or will it work for us? We love the premium nature of Surface, absolutely. We tried to design a device that feels premium, but does expand to people who don't have the money for an $899 Surface Pro minus the pen, without the pen, et cetera, et cetera. And so we love having a great device at that price point, but we want it there because we want Dell to have great devices all over the world. Surface has good geographic coverage. It doesn't have massive geographic coverage. HP, Acer, all those others, Lenovo, all our partners give us that scale that we'll never get to. So that's why we're there. And of course, we're flirting with that. Can it still feel premium? Which is what we want. We absolutely want premium feel. Yep. So voila. Okay, so that's one hidden gem. Another one for me, and some people already get this. A lot of the world doesn't actually get this yet. Game Pass. Game Pass. Oh my gosh. Talk about a hidden gem.
I got it.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep.
I appreciate that.
I didn't get it.
Yeah,
Mary Jo didn't get it, but I got
We're
it.
gonna get her one for Christmas. She'll get it.
But for me, this is a little bit like what we did with Office and where we transitioned from sort of a device-based oriented approach, because you used to buy Office for a particular device, and now you buy it for yourself and you can put it on lots of devices. Game Pass, of course, has a similar notion of saying, hey, let's sort of untether the gamer from a particular device and give them access to just a huge library of content and go beyond the tradition of buying a AAA game for $60, playing it on your console for some number of months, and then over a period of time, it sort of draws down. We think Game Pass is really transformative in saying, hey, for $9 or $10 a month, you can get access to many, many games. All of our first-party games are going to be put into the Game Pass the day we release it, what we call day and date.
That's critical. Because otherwise, if you don't have the A-list titles, I'm not going to do it, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And one of the cool things about Game Pass that I don't, that think most people actually know, maybe you already know this, but is we're seeing interesting dynamics for people who are using Game Pass right now. One super interesting thing is that we're seeing when people play on Game Pass as Game Pass, they're playing 40% more games than they did before they became a Game Pass member. So that's kind of interesting. They're discovering these new genres, they're playing all these back catalog games that developers who built the games weren't getting that gameplay. Yeah. So it's interesting. It's a little unlike Netflix because it's not like, okay, I stopped renting my Blockbuster thing and I just stopped that way and I'm doing it this way. It's actually like, no. The game developers are getting a lot more value out of it because people are discovering their back catalog games. And that's pretty, yes, exactly. That's exactly right. And so that's kind of been cool. We'll see if that continues. Obviously, we'd love that to continue because we want this to be good, not just for the gamer, but we want it to be really good for the game developers. So Game Pass is big for us, and I think you can expect to see more interesting things in the Game Pass space, shall we say, in the next year. So
is there an opportunity to do Game Pass? You wouldn't call it this, obviously, like an E3, E5, kind of like different levels, and you get more at different price points, kind of thing. Because you don't really do that right now, do you?
That's a fascinating idea, Mary Jo. I'm gonna.
Mary Jo, what the heck is wrong with you?
We're recruiting.
No, he likes it. It's mark my words. Next year.
You know what that means? That means it's already in the pipeline. You just accidentally hit right on the.
Which means nothing. It means nothing.
It means nothing, Chris. It means nothing.
Game Pass E5. You heard it here first.
The naming. I think you should join the naming team. We help us.
I'm good at it. I'm good at this.
That would be a fun job. Is there a naming team? That's what they do full time.
We have a set of people called product marketers who do the messaging, the positioning.
Oh, it's part of their job as a whole.
It's part of their job.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so the Surface team who does the product marketing for Surface decided to call
Go's
Surface
a great name. Yeah,
Surface. And that one, had lots of opinions on, but we've fallen in love with it now.
It's a good choice. Yeah.
So stay tuned on Game Pass. I think there's a lot more to come, and I think you've obviously already seen that we're working on this thing that we call Project xCloud, where you'd be able to stream games to your Android phone. And so this notion of gaming with the people you want, with the games you want on the devices you want is big, and Game Pass is it's a hidden gem to us getting there. So that would be a second one I'd bring to you. Now let's get to the ones that you're going to be like, dude, really? I think it was 2 years ago. I think it was 2 years ago where I said, mark my words, Microsoft Teams is a hidden gem for us.
Right.
And I left after the call. You guys are like, well, that was a really interesting interview, but man, that Microsoft, what the hell is he talking about? Like Microsoft Teams. That was the one thing that you were just kind of scratching your head. The reason I was so excited about Microsoft Teams then, and I put it on the list now, is we built that product very, very quickly. Like the agile engineering that went from ideation to actually shipping something was incredible. And now here we are a couple of years later, and Teams, and I'm going to cheat, and I'm going to put Microsoft 365 in there because Teams comes with Microsoft 365. These are very, very big, important products to us. Most people don't even know what Microsoft 365 is yet. It is, a service that combines Office 365 with our device manageability and security technology called EMS with the Windows subscription. And so if you're a CIO, for the vast majority of your employees, you can literally subscribe to Microsoft 365 with different plans, different subscription levels, and you can really give your employees sort of everything they need for teamwork, creativity, security, and sort of peace of mind. And that's kind of cool. But Teams for us is this important product because we've obviously seen Slack have some great success, and Zoom has had some interesting success, and there's all these point solutions that help you manage your tasks and help you do video calls and help you do persistent chats and collaboration. And with Teams, we're really saying, hey, our vision is that those aren't going to be 5 different tools from 5 different vendors. They're just going to be part of the way you work. And Teams is going to be the hub that people use to collaborate. A lot like Outlook kind of was the hub for how you started to manage your email and your calendar. Teams is sort of the hub for people to manage their work together. And it's been, we've advanced the product, we've made it better. We still have a long list of things people want us to do with the product, but it's been pretty cool to see, companies say, hey, there's actually something you have here. Accenture, I was just talking to the global CIO of Accenture. This is a big, big company. They have 170,000 users, different individuals who are using Teams on a weekly basis. It's starting to get real traction. And so that's one that I'd throw out there. We created a freemium version this year that people can download. We want to make that a lot better, a lot easier to get started with. But Teams is one I would say keep your eyes on. Teams and Microsoft 365 are really a major bet for the company. And so I wanted to add it in there. Shall I keep powering through?
Yeah, I don't think any of us take exception to Teams anymore. I'm not sure what we said 2 years ago, but
and you saw the numbers
obviously
that
a big
they
deal.
just put out yesterday or the day before.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been a huge
Spiceworks.
success. Yeah.
Yeah, that was Spiceworks. That wasn't Microsoft, by the way. That was
Spiceworks.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they said more people are using Teams than Slack, which is obviously for us here. But that we have a lot of work to do. We got a long way to go. But I would say that you'll hear a lot more about that one. Okay, here's one you're just going to be like, dude, I have no idea what you're talking about. And I waited.
We like those though. That's
okay. Good.
We do.
So my Teams of this is my Teams from 2 years ago, I'm going to say it now. We have a product. I'm laughing as I say it because I'm just waiting for a reaction. We have a product called PowerApps that goes along with Power BI. And I think you guys know a lot about Power BI. That thing has taken off. It's really helped us compete with Tableau very, very successfully. But PowerApps is this funny little product that basically does a non-sexy thing, like help people build apps without writing code. It helps them bring the development time of a mobile app down very, very to a very small number. You build it on top of your Salesforce implementation. You build it on top of Office 365. You build it on top of tons of stuff. And it's showing me a lot of the properties that Access and VB showed me a million years ago, where people sort of look at it and they're like, oh, that's kind of interesting. And then before you know it, people are downloading the thing, they're building apps with the thing, the apps start getting usage. And this feels like we have sort of lightning in a bottle with this thing called PowerApps. It's hard to not laugh when I say it to you, because it's such an unsexy space of, helping an IT team work through the backload of all the apps that they have to build to meet the needs of a business, all the businesses they try to solve. But man, I think that James Phillips and the Dynamics team who built this have really come up with something that is quite impressive. And we're seeing a lot of viral adoption. Not all of Microsoft products get viral adoption. A lot of them we push heavily, and then customers look at them. This one is showing a lot of these signs of, oh wow, it's just starting to really take off. So, PowerApps would be a hidden gem that I would put on.
I wouldn't make fun of that. Microsoft has been pursuing this notion of bringing development capabilities to IT forever, and there have been some misguided approaches in the past where the hope or belief was that IT could become developers, and I don't think that ever really worked out. So the notion of building apps without writing code is the dream, right? I mean, it's so, yeah, I don't have a problem with that.
Good. So watch that space. Watch that space and see if it turns into something.
I knew it was going to be big when you guys put out the latest Dynamics 365 update, and you had a whole section of that dedicated to the Power Platform, as you guys call it. And so I'm like, oh, they're really pushing this up. Like, it used to be kind of like, yeah, a few people knew what Flow was, a few knew what Power Apps was, but then when it became like this whole other Power Platform with James Phillips and all, I was like, okay, now they're getting serious about Power Apps.
I think that's right. If you can always listen to, that's a really good source. And obviously what Satya and Amy talk about on the earnings call is always a really good source too, that a lot of people don't listen to. And it's like, hey, we're talking, like, that's a pretty strategic communication moment for the company.
Exactly. And, there's a reason we put 10 minutes on Power Apps, right?
Yeah, exactly right. Exactly right. So put that one on your radar. And then the last one I would just say is somewhat tongue in cheek, and I really don't mean it this way, but I'd be a fool to not include it. This show is called Windows Weekly, of course, and you guys dabble between sort of deep Windows, and then also covering lots of other things that Microsoft does. But for me, the 2019 was really the year of Azure, and for me to not have Azure as one of my, I say it's a hidden gem only because it doesn't get much airtime on Windows Weekly, and so for us,
well, you changed the name. If you had called it Windows Azure, maybe.
You're totally right.
I mean, that's on you.
Alone. It is on
those marketing guys.
It was. You're looking at them. You're totally right. I did change the name from Windows Azure to Microsoft Azure. We started with Windows Azure when we realized that we were going to support, every database we could support and every operating system. Of course, Windows felt like the wrong name, but you're right. Maybe that would have got it in there. Anyways, I would just say very quickly, you see the incredible growth. You see how I think it's changing the culture of the company. But I think in 2018, this was the year, if you look at the three major clouds, let's say AWS, Azure, and GCP, Google Cloud Platform, I think Azure had just a phenomenal year. And if you look at kind of who kind of made the most progress, let's say, it's hard not to, of course I'm incredibly biased, but it's hard not to say, wow, Azure made a lot more than a year's progress in the last year. So I had to add that to my list too. Yeah. And that's it. Those are my 5.
Actually, I don't see that as bias. I mean, you see what you see. I mean, that's actually, I think it's important when you say that,
I think we talk about Azure a lot. I know.
We try, we try
Mary
to
Jo
interject
tries.
it around Xbox. And
Go Mary Jo.
Honestly, I mean, that's the future of the company is the cloud.
Yeah.
So I think we certainly do. And we named it Windows Weekly back in 79, but it's always been a Microsoft show, and it it really should be Azure Weekly, except I don't know who would listen to it. So
exactly,
I would.
No, but I mean, it's clear that Microsoft has made an amazing pivot. I mean, and it's really all about the cloud, and I think
including Windows actually.
Yes.
I think Windows, the way we're trying to service the product and try to figure out, are we updating it too often? Are we updating it not often enough?
Well, do you want to ask him about that, Paul?
Yeah.
You're updating it too much. No, I mean, it's been a tough year for Windows, and I feel this personally in some ways just because it is my focus, and it has been, for 20 years. I mean, It's troublesome to me that there's nobody representing Windows on the senior leadership team, for example. And
a single
obviously
person.
there's been, someone directly responsible for Windows, as was the case before. I mean, I don't know how to even frame the question, but I mean,
go for it.
Given that, and given the issues we've seen with the two major updates this year, I mean, is there? I don't even know what I'm trying to ask. I mean, what's the lifeline here? I mean, is there? Does Windows become? Does it continue to kind of fade in relevance, or I mean, what does the future look like there?
Yeah, well, first of all, I would say there's no doubt that across our entire product line, quality has got to be fantastic. And with 1809, clearly we had some quality issues that were picked up by the insiders, by many people that you guys represent super well. We stopped the rollout, pulled it back, figured out what was going on, tried to fix the bugs, et cetera. And you guys have documented that incredibly well. I would say quality isn't just something we worry about for Windows. You guys cover that deeply, but it's something that if you were to see how we talk about Microsoft 365, how we talk about Azure, how we talk about Dynamics, how we talk about Surface, how we talk about Xbox and the streaming experience, even how we talk about the commerce that we do through our websites, the quality drumbeat is very, very loud, and that didn't always show itself in the light it should have this year. But I want to make sure that isn't something that people feel like is particular to Windows, because it's something we're working on kind of across the board. And that part is really important. If you were sitting in the senior leadership team meeting that I sit in every Friday with our CEO and his 15 direct reports, quality comes up constantly, and it's something we focus a ton of energy on. So the challenges we had around those Windows releases were top of mind. We spent a lot of time on them. And it's not just about how did we ship a bug, it's also about what are the listening systems? How do we make them better? When we wanted to stop it, how quickly could we stop it? There's a whole bunch of tools and systems that are involved in shipping any of these updates to any of these systems. And we're always looking for actually the systemic issues beyond the individual. Hey, you had this bug that stopped mapped network drives from working, or you had this bug that stopped the Windows Media Player from playing, or the particular bugs, frankly, are not what the senior leadership team is going to spend their time on. We're looking at what are the systemic issues we have.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And those are, frankly, far more powerful to solve. We've got great teams that when they see the bug, that deletes data or whatever, they're going to get on that. But I want to make sure your listeners know that it's not a quality thing for Windows. It's a quality thing for everything we do. And sometimes we do a great job, and sometimes we take two steps back. And clearly with that Windows release, that was an example of taking a step back, and we need to do better. There's just there's nobody would say anything other than you have to get the quality incredibly strong. And so hopefully next year we'll do better by our insiders and our customers. In terms of the future of Windows, we're actually incredibly bullish that the computing at the edge is something that matters more than it's ever mattered. And when I say the edge, I mean devices that connect to the cloud either all the time or sporadically that have real compute power. And you're not just, the world isn't just going to be a browser connected up to an intelligent cloud. We see too many scenarios where having compute power at the device itself is really, really important. And so whether it's the Coca-Cola vending machine that's powered by Windows, or whether it's a Surface Go or a Surface Studio that's powered by Windows, or whether it's, washing machines and refrigerators that have Azure Sphere as the silicon, as the MCU inside of those devices that are essentially have a local operating system and are doing compute at the edge. We're so committed to this notion of an intelligent edge and an intelligent cloud that I think the future of Windows is incredibly bright. Today's Windows is very good on 10-inch screens and above, unless you're talking about the embedded version that runs on Coke machines. We don't want to only have Windows, be 10-inch and above productivity devices. We want elements of Windows to be powering lots and lots of, there are going to be far more edge devices than there are going to be phones and tablets and PCs, just way more. They'll outnumber those devices by many billions. And so obviously for us, a wonderful opportunity is to figure out how to bring Windows or Windows components to these edge devices that don't have, big hard drives and a lot of RAM. And that's a journey that we're doing with things like Azure Sphere. So I personally believe as long as we as a company feel like the intelligent edge is as important as the intelligent cloud, we're going to be a lot different than Amazon. We're going to be a lot different than Google. And that's, of course, what we want. We want that differentiation. And so many customers are telling us, yeah, we need that. We need edge computing to be powerful. And so please keep investing in it.
Can I throw a Windows question in?
Yeah, please.
This is one that we have said on many Windows Weeklies. We have to ask Chris Capossela this question.
Oh, God.
Ads in ads
great.
in Windows.
Ads in Windows. Asked, yeah.
So people feel like I paid for Windows either directly or indirectly, yet I'm getting ads in Windows, including ads for things that I already own, like Office 365. Why do you guys put ads in Windows? And is there any hope that you will not?
Yeah, I would say absolutely there's hope. Let me try to tackle this one head on.
We need hope, Chris.
Yes, I hear you. I think one of the things I learned this year is that the Windows Insider program is a fantastic program for us. We got, many millions of users in it. And it's a fantastic program for us to do experimentation with what I would call, new features in Windows. It's not something we should be doing business model experimentation with. And you look at the ad experiment that we've done inside of the rich mail client inside of Windows, and we have to be far more thoughtful about how we evolve our business model and how that ends up showing up to our users. And because the Insider Ring has just gotten so darn big, it's not really a test bed for something people aren't going to write news articles about, and it's not something that we can, sort of test something willy-nilly. So of course we have to have the right to, think about different business models for the company. Outlook.com in the browser is an ad-funded free service, and I think customers expect that. They understand it. They've come to, if I'm in the browser, I kind of expect to see ads. But if I'm in a rich mail client that came with the operating system, we certainly learned, don't do that. That feels like you have broken the promise or the value exchange. I bought this PC from Dell or from Microsoft, and I expect that the apps that come with it aren't going to be ad funded because I bought the PC already. I paid for it already. Now, when I launch the browser, people have somehow said that's okay. The world has gotten used to, even though I bought this PC, I know when I'm using the browser, I'm going to see ads. And that's a subtle nuance for a lot of people. Like, why is that okay, but this one's not okay? We certainly learned this year that experimenting with the business model of Windows is not something to sort of take lightly, and it's not something to like flight in the Insider Ring to see what the reaction is. I think we have to be more thoughtful there. And so I certainly feel like as the marketing leader of the company and the product marketers who work on Windows, we feel very protective of the value exchange that a customer has when they pay for a Windows device and what their expectation of an advertising experience is. I will say we do want to also make sure people are using the features that are in Windows. So for example, I want to make sure you know that you have 5 gigabytes of free storage that comes with Windows. I want to make sure you know about the things that you can do with Cortana. And so that gets less to the business model and more to, hey, can you actually teach me how to use Windows in a way that doesn't feel like you're cross-selling me? That's kind of gross. And that's one that we have to make sure we find the right balance on. I expect us to continue to want to help people discover the things that come with Windows, but I expect us to be far more careful about the notion of playing with advertising in the shell of the operating system. We certainly were listening to that feedback this time around. So I can't say never because, we've got a business to run. We've obviously got to make these decisions, and we want to encourage experimentation. We don't want people to feel like they're living in fear every day at the company for making a bad decision. And this was a case where there was some experimentation that we probably said, hey, we wouldn't have made that. But you know what? I don't want someone to feel like garbage because they tried something. And there's this interesting balance as a leader between, hey, protecting the sanctity of your customer base and also trying new things. And in this case, of course, we didn't roll this out to 700 million Windows users. It was a small thing, and we listened and we learned. And I think you'll see us doing fewer of those small business model experimentations going forward. We heard you loud and clear.
That's good.
Does that help?
We like that answer. That's a good answer.
It's not, I can't give you a carte blanche promise, obviously, but
right.
we heard loud and clear.
Good.
All right.
Ta-da! There you go.
That's what we say at the end of
I feel
meetings.
like I've exhausted
Ta-da! Ta-da!
Wow. I'm going to try that. That wraps it up nicely.
When we talked about, or do you have to go? You may.
No, I
you
was
have
sorry. I was
somewhere.
just adjusting. I'm not used to these.
Yeah, they're
not
fun,
used
huh?
to this.
You need to get those. I think Microsoft's making some nice Surface headphones. You
Oh, you
gotta get
next
some of
year.
those.
Next year, it's the boom mic. I want to give you the boom.
Get a boom mic on there, and yeah. I think
Yeah.
Brad Sams agrees. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. I shouldn't do that.
That was wicked.
Wicked.
It's like the glitch in the Matrix.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So as you move towards the cloud, there are those who said, well, why is Microsoft continuing with its consumer products, Surface and Xbox and Windows itself?
Oh, easy. That's easy. Yeah.
Okay. I
love-
don't know. I'm sure these guys do, but
Okay, sure. We have this mission that is to empower every person and every organization on the planet. We don't have a mission that is, hey, let's just power all the commercial customers with Azure and Office and Windows, and let's, give up on like the children of the world. That sounds like you're cutting off a lot of people.
Oh my God! I'm sorry I
seriously,
suggested it.
No, but it is. it's
Leo,
a good
what's
question.
wrong with you?
Holy cow! I had no idea.
Why don't you like children?
You don't like advertising? You don't like children?
I'm
What's wrong
terrible.
with you?
No, I do like advertising. I do like advertising.
It's the children he doesn't like.
Yeah.
Seriously, the super simple answer is, number one, we have this mission that really is to empower every person. And that means not just focusing on our organizations. It means students, kids who go to school and do their homework. We want to be empowering to them. We want Minecraft to be a way they create their first Roman Colosseum in their world history class or whatever. That stuff that's right at the heart of what our mission is. And then you could say, yeah, but Chris, why don't you just change your mission? Because there's a lot more money to be made in commercial space. And what I would say there is, we totally understand that if you lose people at home, if kids go to school and never use your technology, then it's just a matter of time before you lose your entire commercial business too.
Interesting.
And so there's a mission that our CEO feels very, very strongly about that leads us into the consumer space. But there's also a business imperative that you've got to have software developers who are learning computer science in high school using VS.Code.
Right.
You've got to have them learning that Azure has amazing AI technology in it. And, the default shouldn't just be AWS for a computer science class in college. Those things are in our best business interests, even if you think we, are a very commercially centered company.
Yeah.
I would say gaming, the business is a stunning business, and it's helped us in many other places. So we feel very, very comfortable in this notion that we have a mission that leads us to consumer, and we have a business imperative that leads us to caring about consumer. We're not going to care about everything that's consumer. We're not going to ship a package to your door in an hour. We're not going to, there's a lot of things we won't do, but man, gaming we're going to do, and all things productivity and teamwork and creativity and security, those are things we love. And we think we have skills that we can bring great products to teachers, students, parents, retired people, you name it. And that's kind of how we think about it.
Well, as a user of VS Code, I just say when I grow up, I will absolutely use Microsoft products.
I love it. VS Code,
it's
was
awesome.
I'm an idiot. I should have had it on my hidden gem.
It's pretty awesome. I'm thrilled you guys give that away. It's fantastic. I use it on a Mac. I'm sorry, but
No, the VS Code team wouldn't say you have to apologize for that. Developers use lots and lots of platforms, but VS Code is a hidden gem of the year for sure. We see more Google developers using VS Code than not. It's incredible. The majority of Google developers are using it now. It's just been embraced, and it's because it works on all these platforms, and they've been so customer centric. That team, Julia Lewison runs that team, and it's just been awesome to see. Oh, there you go.
That was our chat room, but it's close. It looks just like VS Code.
It does look
there you go.
Sure.
I'm not using VS Code right now. I would hate to. I wouldn't do that. But it is interesting that Microsoft has become such a cross-platform company. You mentioned open source. You mentioned how the VS Code team loves seeing people use it on other platforms.
Yeah.
And it really is a complete shift for Microsoft, this cross-platform thing.
It's big.
Yeah.
And interestingly, developers get to choose the devices that they use at many high-tech companies, and certainly at Microsoft there's a lot of choice. People just go buy stuff and bring it in. And one thing that's been fascinating for me to see quietly over the past maybe year and a half is Surface Book has sort of become like the dev box. As I roam the halls at Microsoft or do meetings with our engineering team, it's incredible for me to see this Surface Book 15-inch in particular seems to be this sweet spot of, kind of power. And I think some of the things we've done to bring Linux tools to Windows, we've seen a resurgence in Windows for developers, even while we're embracing developers working on every platform. And that's I don't think people would have predicted that happening, and maybe it's a testament to the book itself. But that's kind of been cool to see.
Yeah.
Okay, I've taken like an hour and 12 minutes of your show.
Dude, this show could go on for 4 hours. You don't.
Yeah, it could be like
as you well know,
like an Ignite keynote morning.
Nice. Right.
It's everybody. Here's your chance to stretch.
Here's the bathroom break.
Yeah.
Yoga, everyone.
Yoga.
So voila, shall I say my parting words and let you get to the rest of your show?
Sure.
Sure.
We know
Okay.
you have a meeting and need to run.
Yes. First of all, thanks
Need our
obviously
help
for all.
keeping you out of the meeting. Just let us know.
Oh, yeah.
We can do that. It's a service we offer.
I can't say that this will be an every year occurrence, but this year I thought I should bring some things for your Windows Weekly listeners. So we did do a little bit of behind the scenes checking in with Mary Jo and Paul, and the team here wanted to sort of reward your fans who are usually also Windows or Microsoft fans with some fun giveaways. And every organization has different kind of compliance rules for who's allowed to accept giveaways and who's not. So we want to be really conscious of that. And we checked with Mary Jo and with Paul, and it looks like Paul's organization will be the
Has no morals at
gatherer.
all, and we'll accept everything that you give us.
I didn't say that. I knew you were going to go there. I didn't say that. I would just say Paul's organization has different rules than maybe where Mary Jo works. So Paul will be the collector of these things from Microsoft, and then we'll be finding some interesting way to reward your fans. And we're going to do, what are we going to do? We're going to do 10 one-year Game Pass subscriptions, which is kind of cool. We're going to do 10 Office 365 consumer subscriptions. And we are going to do a couple of other cool things. We are going to do 5 of these. This is the Surface headphone. Oh, thank you for that, Leo. That was very quick.
Why is
We're
that
gonna do
bigger
5
than your head? How big is that
know.
box?
Well,
Not life size.
it's big as mine. We're going to do 5 of those, and then we're going to do 5 Surface Goes with type covers.
All right,
So,
now, I do have to say, for legal reasons, this is not a giveaway that we are doing. That you are this is there's
that's right.
strict federal rules about this. This is all on Paul, right?
Correct, Paul. Is that right?
Yeah, I guess it is. But yes, I am. Yeah, I'll be doing it through the site.
Nice. And so
tomorrow
details
when I-
at thurrott.com or.
Yeah, when I post this episode tomorrow, I will make a post about how this will work. It's basically
Contesting is always a challenge on.
Chime in
on our
if you
shows.
want to be part of the raffle and
A raffle.
Random selection.
Yeah, I think that's all right.
But
If there's no skill involved, it's not it's a lot.
Yeah.
It's
I
a
can't
lot
remember
of-
the rules. That's why we don't do it.
Yeah.
All the
I mean, I'll
rules will be on thurrott.com.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Voila.
Just put
So
it
thank
up
you
there
guys very much for
tomorrow.
having me, and obviously have a happy holiday.
Chris, a real pleasure.
Yeah, you
it's,
too.
it's an
Thanks.
honor for us
It
has
is.
been for every last few years to host you. So thank you. And thank you
Hey,
for your
thank you all.
forthright candor. You're fantastic.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's what makes this worthwhile
does.
for us, honestly. I mean,
Good.
Really
My
appreciate
pleasure.
it. Take care,
All right.
Chris.
Bye.
Thanks so
you.
much.
Bye.
All right, we're going to take a little break while we get Chris out of the mix. I've been told that all I have to do is push this button here. Oh, geez. Paul has some experience with that. There you go. And I have removed Chris. While now, do you guys have anything else? You didn't do notes or anything. Anything else to talk about? Or
No,
should
we did.
should-
We have notes.
Oh, good. All right.
We've got notes.
All right. So we will get to the rest of the show in just a second. But first, a word from our sponsor. See, I like ads, Chris. Nothing wrong with an ad, especially if it's a well-timed ad for a product our listeners are interested in, and a product I personally support, and that's Rocket Mortgage from Quicken Loans, the #1 lender in the country. At 9 years, I almost said 8 years in a row, now 9 years in a row, according to J.D. Power. #1 in customer satisfaction. And for the last year, #1 in volume. They go hand in hand. When a company really focuses on the customer experience, people are going to come back. They're going to tell their friends. And that's why Quicken Loans has grown so fast in the last few years. And frankly, I think Rocket Mortgage has a lot to do with it. That's their Quicken Loans' entirely online mortgage approval process. Very timely. Because who wants to go to a bank these days and fill out a long form and then go to the attic and find paperwork and take days and weeks and sometimes even months to get that home loan? Ain't nobody got time for that. Rocket Mortgage is fast, it's easy, and it's completely online. Get started by going to rocketmortgage.com/windows, and you will begin with the power buying process. Actually, first thing you should do, even if you're not house hunting, and I think probably people aren't right now for the holiday season, but as things kick back into gear next month, you'll be ready to go. So go to rocketmortgage.com/windows, create the account. Then when you're ready to apply for a loan, answer a few simple questions. I mean, stuff you know right off the top of your head. Name, address, birth date, social security, that kind of thing. They'll check your credit, and at that point, they'll give you pre-qualified approval. You'll choose the term, the rate, the down payment of the loan. They'll tell you all the loans for which you qualify. That's easy, and in most cases, less than 10 minutes. Step 2 happens over the next 24 hours, and again, most often, without any intervention on your part, they will verify income, assets, and credit. You don't have to do anything. They have relationships with all the financial institutions. It's very easy for them to do this, and in less than 24 hours, they'll give you what they call verified approval. You now have the strength of a cash buyer. You press a button right on the screen, print that letter, give it to your realtor, or even the person selling the house that says, look, they're good for it. You move right to the front of the line. And then once you're verified, the third thing kicks in, which is their all-new exclusive Rate Shield approval. Feds just raised rates today again. And there's no end in sight. When the Federal Reserve rate goes up, your index rate will go up, your loan cost will go up. And I got to tell you, on a 30-year loan, even an eighth of a point or a quarter of a point, that means tens of thousands of dollars. And that puts some pressure on you because now, all of a sudden, you got to buy a house quick. Otherwise, it could cost a lot more if you wait. Unless you've been using Rocket Mortgage. Because this is the third part, Rate Shield approval locks up your rate for up to 90 days while you shop. So the rate you get right now is the rate you'll get for the next 90 days. Rates probably will go up, but your rate cannot. If rates go down, that's possible too. If rates go down, your rate will go down. So you win either way. This is exactly why Quicken Loans is so good. They think about your experience and they make it better. To get started, go to rocketmortgage.com/windows. This is when it's time to buy Rocket or refi. rocketmortgage.com/windows. Now, I should tell you, Rate Shield approval is only valid on certain 30-year purchase transactions. Additional conditions or exclusions may apply. It's based on Quicken Loans data in comparison to public data records. Equal housing lender, licensed in all 50 states, NMLSconsumeraccess.org, number 3030. Here's what you need to remember. And if you would do me a favor, use Rocket. It'll help Paul and Mary Jo too. rocketmortgage.com/windows. We thank Quicken Loans for their support of Windows Weekly. And now, on with the show, Paul and Mary Jo. That was great. It's interesting. He was prepared more this time. Like he knew he was going to have, he said, I got an hour. I'm going to get it all in there.
Yep.
And he did.
Yeah.
I thought he did a great job.
He's always great.
But he also let us ask questions, which was great, too.
Well, and he was responsive to the toughest question of all, which is the Windows 1809 question.
Yep.
And I think I don't know, what do you think? Were you satisfied with his response? I thought it was good.
I like that the senior leadership team has quality as top of mind. But, the issue I've raised on the show over the past months or years or whatever is just that I feel like there's a cultural issue there where it needs to be infused into the reward system at Microsoft. When you think about some of the stuff he talked about that was exciting or new or interesting to him or whatever, a lot of it is new stuff, and that's fine. But that again kind of speaks to the
That's normal, isn't it? I mean, it's always the new stuff that
it is
everybody's
normal.
sexy. That's what's sexy.
It's hard. Windows is 30-something years old. It's kind of legacy. It's not the hot new, stuff. It's not the stuff they want to talk about on their earnings announcements. It's not the stuff anyone in the press or Wall Street is interested in. And I know the quality issue extends beyond Windows, but I just like to see. I'm glad. I mean, it was good news. I think what he had to say was good news. But I'd like there to be some kind of a formal embrace of quality, as like they talk about these bars they have to hit for things to release. I mean, I think there has to be some way of measuring quality for that to be part of it.
They've kind of hinted that in the new year they're going to say something more on this. They haven't said what, but in those quality blog posts they started to do as a series, they're like, yeah, we're going to say some other things about quality in the new year. So I'm like, okay, let's see what you say.
Yeah, no, that's right. And I think, are you referring specifically to the kind of the John Cable stuff? And
the Mike Fortin, John Cable.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I feel, like I said to him, I mean, I feel Windows very personally, and I think you do too, Mary Jo, in a way. I mean, I know you cover Microsoft more broadly than just Windows, but Windows is, it's been the kind of core of it for a long time. And yeah, I'm sure. I don't feel that Office has had the quality problems, that Windows has had, for example. I mean, Office is a product that is more complex than Windows, if anything. It runs on multiple platforms. It's updated almost every single day, literally, across those platforms. The announcements they make every month about all the feature updates are so complex and long, they're impossible to keep track of.
Yeah.
And so there's something wrong there.
Yeah. I think the good thing was he didn't try to just say, like kind of like those blog posts have been like, our quality is the best it's ever been. He didn't say that.
Yes.
He acknowledged it was a problem. Yeah. So that was good. I don't think
you could credibly say that with a straight face. So I'm glad.
I hope not.
That's what's great about him, though. He is very transparent and honest. And and he's, like Leo mentioned, I mean, he's not afraid of addressing the hard questions,
Yep.
I remember a couple of years ago, I think the first time we had him on, we kind of just let him talk. It was kind of amazing to have him on, at all.
It was.
And I actually got some criticism from people on my blog site, on the blog there, who were saying, my God, you had this guy on the show. You didn't even ask him any hard questions. And it was like, well, it's not that we couldn't ask him the hard questions. I mean, I think it was just, the guy is on the show. I mean, the point isn't to, hijack him or whatever. I mean, but the thing is, what you learn over time dealing with him is he's, really there's almost nothing you can ask him.
No, and there's different ways to do interviews, and some people are the ones who always are like trying to get you. I gotcha. Sometimes when the subject's like him and he just talks, it's like your best way to interview somebody like that is let him talk, because he's going to say things we wouldn't even ask.
And
right?
to be clear, and I know I almost said this on the show, but I'll say it now on the show. But I meant to say this to Chris, which was, pause a little bit between these items, because I know all the other bloggers are watching this now and they're writing their stories, because there's some interesting tidbits that he says. There are very interesting hints for the future. And he didn't come out and say this, but there was a kind of, you had mentioned what do you call it? The modern work and devices, or what's that?
Modern life and devices.
Modern life and devices. I wouldn't be surprised if this Microsoft 365 for consumers, which you can't really, acknowledge, isn't that thing, right?
It's in there. It's a big part of that.
It's like a manifestation.
It is
of that thing. Yeah.
It is indeed. And that's, I didn't expect him to like say, here's everything that's in Microsoft 365.
Right. Let me just open up the file. Oh yeah. Here's what we're doing. Right.
But that, like he's hinting, next year, you're going to have some more things to talk about on this front. So we think they're going to launch the subscription next year. The curious thing is what's going to be part of it. Is Surface going to be in it? Is like, I don't know, like Outlook Mobile? I think they're going to take some free products that they already have and mix in some paid products. Is gaming going to be part of it? We don't know.
That's the thing I was just thinking. So when we talked about this in a kind of a nebulous fashion earlier, because nobody really, at the time and now nobody really knows, right?
Yeah.
I sort of thought, not that it would be, but that given what Microsoft has for subscription services, given that it's aimed at consumers, you could make a case for gaming being part of it. He talked a lot about gaming today.
He did.
But in the realm of this stuff, it was very much productivity focused. And I thought as he was talking that meant gaming would not be part of it.
Although then, when Leo asked him the question about why still focus on consumers, and he gets into the whole "do you hate children" thing, it's like,
wow, I know,
okay.
man. Ooh.
But the thing is, I'm like, okay, so maybe they do throw some gaming. Maybe they throw gaming in there, like at least Minecraft, right? Like some nod to the future generations and kids in school.
You brought up tiers. I mean, one way you could do a tier of a Microsoft 365 for consumers would be for one tier to have gaming and one not.
True.
There are some people who might want, as a family, to have the whole Microsoft full meal deal, as we'll call it, which could be all the productivity stuff plus all the gaming stuff. Xbox Live Gold and Xbox Game Pass for the whole family. There are others who might just want the productivity part of it, And if you look at Microsoft 365 as a superset of Office 365, which it is technically on the commercial side, and what they might do on the consumer side, that's a reasonable approach. As much as I kind of don't like having multiple tiers for consumers. I mean, there is a personal and a home today, and I think that's fine. It makes sense.
Yeah.
2 tiers of Microsoft 365, which is something that doesn't even exist today. At first that seems a little dense to me, but it could make sense.
What about Game Pass E5? Come on, he handed us that.
Please don't call it that.
It's coming soon, guys.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think his answers were good. I was really encouraged to hear the answer on advertising, that he was just like, we screwed up, and like that was a mistake. What we did with Mail.
And that's good.
Refreshing.
And the line that he drew there, I thought was accurate and interesting. That when you buy Windows and you get this thing, there shouldn't be ads there. That's a natural reaction for people to have. It's okay to promote features of the OS, and I agree with that too. And honestly, there are switches you can make turn that off, and that's good.
Yep.
There is a thing with there is an expectation in a browser that you're going to get ads on the web, and obviously there's technologies to turn that stuff off too. But I mean, that was a dark day. I mean, when that and it's fair to say we're on our own little bubble, I guess, in this kind of Windows enthusiast community, whatever. But that build or whatever that came out that had that ad thinking that Mail client was just like, oh, here we go. Here we go. So I'm glad they stepped back from that.
Yeah. Same.
Yeah. Have we dissected this enough, or is there anything else you want to say? I think. Okay, I don't want to.
Can I reiterate my love of Chris Capossela?
Yeah, please, because he's going to be listening to this after the fact.
Yeah,
what did those jerks say about me when I left?
What did that child-hating guy say? He hated our holiday.
You hate children, don't you, Leo? Yeah. No, he makes a good point.
He has to give us all a dig.
Well, remember, he's a CMO. He can't say what may be more accurate, which is, we're going to keep our legacy business as long as we can until the next generation business takes over.
Sure.
Oh,
right? I mean, that's the real truth. You're not going to kill Windows or Xbox as long as it's making you lots of money.
He also, there was a hint in there, too. He was talking about edge computing. And, of course, edge computing is everything.
Whoa. I pushed the wrong button. Chris is there. Shh, don't say anything.
Oh, my God. Is he hearing us? No.
What the hell happened there?
He's really listening in.
Yeah. Edge computing is, what it is. It's fine. Windows is the big, complex, heavy legacy part of that. It's fine. But there was this kind of notion of Windows being part of the edge. And then I can't remember the exact phrase he used, but it was like components of Windows or parts of Windows also being other things on the edge. And this I think was kind of a hint at like a light version of Windows, like we've seen rumored recently, where there maybe will be tiers of this client, and that, for people who do need the legacy applications, the Photoshops, the full Microsoft Office, whatever, we have Windows, what we call Windows, and that, maybe Microsoft for years has been investigating and experimenting with lighter versions of Windows that only run these modern technologies, and we've heard a rumor about the latest version of that. So maybe that's what that was about.
Yeah, Windows Lite, yeah.
Yeah, especially because he said, unlike Google and Amazon, who think you can have a browser connecting up to the cloud. I'm like, so that's gonna be their pitch, right? Windows Lite's not just a browser; it's actually Windows.
Well, that's what they've been saying all along about Chromebooks. Remember the Pawn Stars?
Right.
I had this book; it doesn't work. But honestly, I'm sure some part of the executive committee thinks about what the future of computing is going to look like, not in 2 years or 5 years, but in 10 years.
Oh, yeah.
It would only be fiscally prudent to think about what that means for your business down the road.
Yep, for sure.
And to their credit, they've done a great job of pivoting to meet that challenge. But it's not over. They're going to continue to have to change. We don't know what computing is going to look like in 10 years. They don't. But they may have a better idea than we do.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not.
Maybe
not. I don't know. I mean,
maybe.
Yeah. It's that's the hardest thing for a company like Microsoft, right? Is to.
Well, I think it's honestly maybe now the greatest part of their legacy that they have been able to do this. A lot of companies,
they're the exception.
Never make this transition. Right?
Most companies don't.
Yeah.
I mean, you could say IBM's still around, but IBM is a shadow of what it used to be in terms of dominance.
It's like Polaroid's still around too. If you want to license their name and put it on a DVD player or something.
I think IBM's doing a little better than Polaroid, but nevertheless,
a little bit. A little bit.
No, but the point is that's amazing. That's why I said, you guys have made an amazing pivot, unheard of in the business. Yeah. But that doesn't mean they can say, okay, well, we did it now.
Right.
We're set.
They can't stop.
They can't stop.
Right? Yeah. Nope.
Yeah.
I think there is a future in consumer. Obviously, they're all consumers. It's only a question of what it'll look like. That's all.
Yeah.
And they're, come on, they're doing Xbox in the cloud.
Yeah.
Right. We're doing.
Definitely.
He said it. You're going to be able to play Xbox games on your Android device.
See, and now that's how we are going to talk about Azure now, because that's where Xbox is going to be.
Right.
Yeah.
Xbox, Azure, Xbox. It's all one and the same.
It's all the same.
Xbox, Azure pick of the week.
Mary Jo and I were just kind of bumping heads, but we're going to come together.
Mary Jo's been on the right side of this equation all along. I think that what he was saying, which I agree with, is we're not going to be business focused, but that was a little bit of kind of misdirecting it. Nobody's saying you're going to abandon consumers. You got. I
said they should. I've written that they should, but
okay.
I think anyone who has covered Microsoft has at one point or another at least thought to themselves,
break it up. Yeah,
maybe they should just stop. But I think there's I was talking actually to Brad about this, with regards to Windows Lite in particular, but in my thought that I think Windows 10 Home eventually is going to go away and be replaced by this thing, and that Windows 10 Pro becomes, is Windows, right? And there's an idea I had, maybe as long ago as when XP was around, where, there's no reason that the consumer version of Windows can't look completely different from the business version. The goal has to be that they run the same apps and drivers, but they can look completely different.
Well,
the business version can be buttoned down. And
remember the Fisher-Price interface on Windows XP?
Yeah.
But yes, but what they did was, that was still available to businesses too, right? In other words, there's kind of a friendly, simple Chromebook-looking thing that I think Microsoft could do with Windows Lite. And then they could keep the big, heavy, functional, whatever. And power users, developers, whoever, are always going to, lean toward the heavy, big thing because it has everything in it. And normal human beings, my mother, my brother, whatever,
how does that work,
want to use the simple.
How does that work? I'm thinking about, Bob's is an example. Don't people just go, well, stop patronizing me?
No, it's not. No, I don't mean something like Bob. I mean, think about how like a Chromebook, Chrome OS looks today compared to how Windows 10 looks.
It doesn't look stripped down. It doesn't look like you're using a kid's operating system. Here's the operating system for dummies. Yeah.
No, but there aren't 8 ways to do something in Chrome OS, right?
Right.
I mean, there's a single UI for everything. That's it. And Apple. Remember, Apple experimented briefly with having this launcher screen in Mac OS.
Yep.
That looked like the one in iOS. And that was when people were, were like, I don't know, maybe that's a bridge too far. Like they sort of thought maybe we'll do this thing for home users. It will be the same. It'll be easy, I think there is a separation that can occur there. As long as the apps run. That's the goal. The apps have to run.
And first line workers could be in with that too, right? Like they want something that's functional, simple. Like they don't need
a kiosk
necessarily
mode
Hyper-V.
might be all they need, Well, think about. I'm sorry, just real quick, because this is going to exit my brain a second I say it. The mistake of Windows RT and Windows 10s is that they made something that looked the same that didn't run the same apps, right?
Yeah.
So if you kind of flip that on its head,
that was a huge
make
error.
something that looks different because it targets different audiences, but make sure it runs the same apps.
Yeah.
It's the opposite of what they tried with RT and 10s. Sorry.
Yeah.
I think I don't know if it's fair to categorize the simplicity of the OS and say, well, this is for novice or neophyte or unsophisticated users because it's simple. I actually there are a lot of programmers who love, tiled command line windows. I mean,
like a focus mode kind of thing.
Yeah, it's got to be purpose-built.
minimalist.
That's what it has to be. And the user has to be in charge of it. It has to be, the user can say how complex or simple they want it to be.
Yeah. The problem, this is the age-old problem with Windows. You serve an audience that is so diverse.
Yes.
And everyone has so many different needs, and they do things so many different ways. And Microsoft just says, we'll do it all.
You know what? What I've been lately thinking about is car interfaces. Yeah. So I just drove the Jaguar electric vehicle, the I-Pace. Now, remember, I'm driving a Tesla, and Tesla's goal has been to strip it down. If you look at a Model 3, there are literally no buttons. It's all on a screen. The Jaguar went exactly the other way. Everything has a physical button and control. And some people want that. Some people say, oh, no, I need to be able to turn a knob. I need to be able to push a button. On the other hand, I don't think it's less sophisticated to eliminate all of those doohickeys.
No.
In fact, it might be better. And I think people who drive Model 3s really like the fact that it's all, there's no buttons.
So just simple. To use the car example, one of the big, as car makers kind of went overboard with all of these touch screens and, things like that, one of the goofy little things that car makers found was that, having a little knob for volume, for the radio is huge for people.
It's logical. Yeah. You don't want it.
Because it's hard when you drive, you're driving and there's traffic and it's raining out and you're trying to swipe a screen over here or whatever.
Yeah. I got no knob, though. I got no knob. So somebody, austere mode is what they're calling it. Oh, I've lost my thought. I think it's with your thought, Paul, somewhere out there.
It's like writing. Isn't it? Like the hardest articles to write are short and simple.
Yeah.
Like it's easy to write these long, blah, 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 right?
Elaborate is kind of lazy.
Yeah.
You didn't think
good.
about it.
That's funny. Years ago, someone had sent me this really long post from, it doesn't matter from whom, but it was just a terrible over explanation of something. And he said, see, this guy disagrees with you. And I said, anyone who needs that many words to make his point is lying. I'm sorry. I can state very simply why this is wrong. I don't need 3,000 words,
Winston Churchill famously said in a letter, if I had had more time, I would have written a shorter letter.
Yep.
That's great.
By the way, he was a great writer.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's really
Simplicity takes more effort, more thinking. And
it does.
But I think you nailed it when you said Microsoft has this real challenge of having to serve many masters, many users. That is a real challenge.
It's a problem because they've always, every version of Windows, you'd have to invent a goofy example of this, but, you want to burn a disk or you want to connect a device, whatever it is. There's like not 100, there's a handful of different ways to do it. The classic kind of Apple, Mac OS back in the day way of doing things, there'd be one way of doing things. And people can look at that and say it's simpler, it's cleaner, it's more elegant. But if you don't know the way, it may as well not even be there. And it's a serious problem addressing everyone's needs.
You end up getting this.
Yeah, jeez. That's terrible. Is that a Cimarron?
What is that? Cadillac. It's an old 1987 Cadillac Alante.
Alante. Oh, right. The little sporty kind of coupe / convertible. Right.
This is from a Medium article somebody in the chat room passed along by.
Well, at the time that was probably very futuristic looking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is actually a good article on the what went wrong with the interaction of modern cars.
Yeah. I like all the buttons right around the steering wheel stuff. That's exactly where you want those
crazy.
Things. You're like, officer, I'm trying to roll down the window, but I don't know where the thing is.
This button.
I don't know where it is.
Here's the Golf. See, I think the German vehicles tend to be simpler in their buttons, right?
Yep.
Yeah. I like that. That's very clean,
you can see elements that still exist in Volkswagens today.
Yeah. Anyway, I don't have your notes. I don't know why they're not propagating through. So I'm going to leave you. Oh, wait a minute. Here it just came in. Okay. Mary ChrisCapmas. ChrisCapmas. I like it.
That's good.
I like it. Very nice. Is there Windows 10? It looks like you've got some Windows 10 news. Yeah. Oh, the Sandbox. Mary Jo, you wrote about this. I was so excited when I saw this article. Huge. Microsoft.
Huge.
Is this coming from the work they did to make Defender a sandboxed antivirus? I wonder.
So I don't think it's coming from that. But they've been doing a lot of things with containers and how to use containers in the client, right? And we've known since 2015 they were kind of thinking like, what do we do with containers in the client and how do we do that? So when was this? August of this year, there was a bug bash for Windows 10. And they accidentally leaked something called In Private Desktop. And when you looked at what that was, it was a sandbox for Windows 10.
Nice. So
last night, I think this was an accidental post they did. I think they didn't mean to post this last night at 7:30 or 8 p.m. Eastern. But they posted a blog thing about Windows Sandbox, which is the renamed In Private Desktop. And that's exactly what it is. It's a container in Windows 10 for isolating potentially suspicious applications. So you can run them in this virtual lightweight desktop, they call it. And it's going to be for Pro and Enterprise, and we think it's going to be in 19H1, which will be out in March.
So here's what I'm wondering, is whether this evolves into application sandboxing, right? Because right now what this is virtual PC. Mm-hmm. It's more streamlined. It's more efficient. It's not a full VHD file, which is a whole operating system of its own. It's pulling components out of the host operating system on the fly to create a virtual environment so you can run an app. Yeah. And when you close that virtual environment, it goes away. It's always a pristine, fresh version of Windows 10.
Right.
What that reminds me of is MedV, which was Microsoft, I forget what it's called. Microsoft
Enterprise Desktop Virtualization.
Yes, thank you. And what that was a managed version of virtual PC. And it was something you could deploy to user desktops. There was a literal desktop environment running in the background, so you needed lots of RAM. Yep. But the apps that you published to the virtual environment, which you were doing for backwards compatibility reasons, would populate the start menu, and they could run alongside the native applications that were running on the host. The goofy thing about it was they would look like Windows XP apps if you were running on Windows 7. So you'd have Windows 7 apps that look like Windows 7 apps and Windows XP apps that look like Windows XP apps. So eventually, they also came up with something called AppV, which is this application virtualization that requires a server-side infrastructure. And you could stream apps from a data center down to a user's computer. And same effect, you'd have the apps in the start menu. But they would look native, right? And to the user, assuming everything was working correctly, it would be very seamless. I'm wondering if they've done something here where they've created a more efficient way of creating an on-the-fly virtual environment in Windows. And we were just talking about Windows Lite, for example, and I'm wondering if some future version of Windows couldn't use this to virtualize any application that you run, that you download from the internet, So you download Adobe Reader or Google Chrome or whatever it is. And that this is in some ways an automatic version of the desktop bridge stuff that occurs in the store, because for someone to get their app into that container, the developer has to do it, right? Mm-hmm. If Adobe says, no, we're never doing it for Photoshop, then Photoshop is never appearing in the store. And you're never going to be able to run this isolated special version, containerized version of Photoshop. Mm-hmm. But this might be, and again, I'm kind of speculating here, obviously, but I look at this and I wonder if this isn't a step down the path to that, because right now they're kind of presenting this as like for testing, right? So
security, security and testing. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, like, I'm afraid this app might be dangerous. I'm going to run it in this virtual environment and check it out. And then maybe if it's fine, I'll, install it normally. Right. But what if this was the model for apps?
Like, for your scenario, though, it couldn't just go away when you close the window, obviously.
Right. Oh, right? For sure. No, I know, but the fact, but in other words, before, like in the virtual PC, MedV, whatever model, the virtual environment could be anything. It would typically be an older version of Windows. So it'd be Windows XP, and you were running Windows 7 on the client. And that thing had to be maintained. There were Windows updates for it every month or whatever the time frame was. The apps that were inside of it would have to be updated kind of separately from the apps that were out here. It was a whole desktop. But and then they had, since then, they've had Hyper-V, which is a more efficient way of doing virtual machines on Windows. But it's still a single file, a virtual hard drive. It's still a separate environment where everything gets, updated on its own little schedule. This is pulling stuff from the host OS. It's passing through a lot of stuff, which, I know Hyper-V and virtual machines do. But I'm wondering if this isn't how we get from where we are to where we need to be.
Yeah. So two thoughts on what you're saying. One is, I think they still have this ideal, I would call it an ideal, that things are going to go through the Windows Store. Like, they haven't given that up yet. Like, they they're still like fixated on this.
Do you have a balloon deflating sound for that?
But Windows Core OS, this thing we keep talking about as kind of like where they're going in the future with Windows, and Windows Lite is built on this, and Andromeda and anything else that they build in the future for operating systems and devices. The rumor about that is somehow apps will be run in containers, and or they'll be run remotely from a centralized server. So your idea might not be crazy. It might be like, okay, this is how we're testing this.
We're testing this like this.
No, there's a Linux OS that does this now. It's called Cubes, and it runs every process in a separate Sandbox container.
The reason this has to happen, aside from the obvious, right, is it's the Windows 10s problem. It has to be seamless for the user. Like, in other words, the person installing Chrome or whatever doesn't have to ever know or think about what's happening on the. Why would they care? But this thing is isolated. It's running in a virtualized version of the file system, of the registry, of whatever. And every time you close it down, it closes. It doesn't infect anything. There aren't DLLs everywhere. It's not. Yeah. And that backward compatibility, I think, is key for making this make sense. Right? It has to just work.
Well, you have to think that's why Microsoft put Hyper-V in Windows, and why Intel processors have this built-in hardware virtualization. That's the plan, right? Or isn't it? I mean, it seems like.
Well, I think it's the end game. It's the end game. So when they first do it, the argument you can make is there are certain audience members who need this functionality. Developers, for example, they might want to run discrete environments for different versions of Windows so they can test their web app or their whatever app in different environments. And there is an audience for that, but it's kind of a small audience, And I haven't really followed along with what Microsoft's enterprise-focused app virtualization stuff has evolved to, or what it's become, or whatever. But certainly, if AppV is still around today, or MedV or whatever, they could run on top of Hyper-V and Windows 10 Pro Enterprise, and would be much more efficient than those old, basically virtual PC-based type solutions from the past. But yeah, I think, but this is. It's like the architecture of the Xbox One in some ways, right? It's basically a hypervisor. You run these virtual machines basically for each thing separately. Windows could become that type of thing. I'm getting the words wrong maybe, but you have a core OS and it runs apps in containers. We'll just call it that.
Yeah.
Who cares what the technology is? But the point is, the things from the past still run. It's still Windows. Beautiful. And it supports whatever the modern app architecture is.
Yeah. But even despite your like long-term view, in the short term, this is still an awesome thing. And people are super excited about it because a lot of people have been asking for this from a security standpoint. And kind of are like, wow, they finally did it.
Yeah.
I mean, like I can tell you, my feed today, 400 people retweeting this.
Oh, it's huge. Especially if it's fairly transparent, and there's no reason why it can't be.
Yeah.
I'll tell you though, I could see the roadmap ahead though. Is everybody gets excited? It's implemented. Everything's more secure. Somebody discovers, oh look, here but using pipelining, you can get into this. I mean, it's
exactly. You can get over the app boundary.
There'll be a way to get into it. I can't imagine it's 100% secure. And so that means everybody will be focused on how you get across these barriers. That's all.
Right.
It's a temporary fix.
Yeah. Okay. But I mean, I think the problems along those lines will probably have to do mostly with legacy code, right? And I
mean, maybe it will work. Maybe it will make it completely secure. That would be awesome. Cubes, as far as I know, has not been breached in any way. But then again, there's probably 5 people using it. All of them security experts. So
see, the security angle to me is not even necessarily the most important part. Although I think it has to be. By the way,
even Cube's motto is a reasonably secure operating system. But I mean, it's Edward Snowden's choice, but it's a reasonably secure. Nobody
can never say unbreakable.
Nobody will. Because nothing is. Yeah. Right.
But you want to make Windows a more modern and efficient system, while still being able to run this legacy stuff. And so, if we just invent some future where the Windows doesn't have a registry anymore and it doesn't have native support for 32 or whatever it is.
Why isn't that the future?
But you still need to support the applications that expect that stuff, and you can do that through virtualization.
That's the real problem, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yep.
The real problem, the ultimate problem is doing it in a way that, to my mother, she gets Windows 11 or something, and she installs Google Chrome, and it just works. She has no idea what nonsense it's doing under the covers to run this Win32 app. That's the trick, And I just look at this and I think, this isn't what I'm describing. It is absolutely a step in that direction. It doesn't mean they're going in that direction, but this is building blocks for something that could facilitate what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I hope.
This is us in a nutshell.
The new build you got today, right?
Right. Yeah. I'm like, this is us in a nutshell. I'm just practical. Like, yeah, that's like just this. And Paul's like, but you know what it could be? It could be this and this.
It's the future. It's the future.
Yeah. So Sandbox is in the build that came today.
So how do you implement it? Is it automatically on or?
No, it's not automatically on, but there's a whole set of instructions for how to do this.
So nice.
So Windows Sandbox is in this new build, which is 18.305 for Windows 10 19H1. And there's a bunch of other stuff in this build. There's quite a bit. Tamper protection is a new setting for Windows Defender antivirus in here. And they've got a bunch of other security-related things. They've got a new simplified start layout for devices, new user accounts, and clean installs, which is like a single column with all those little top-level title things that are super annoying. What else is in here? Oh, there's just a lot of stuff. There's something about not needing to create a password if you have Windows 10 account with a phone number associated with it, and how you can do that. So yeah. Check out the release notes for today's build, because there's a lot, not just Sandbox in there.
Although the Sandbox is awesome.
It is,
and
right?
Sandbox
the Sandbox is in there.
Needs to have just
Sandbox
the apps.
V2.
Just the apps.
V2.
It's running in the VM in the background or whatever it's called, and what you see is the app running side by side with your normal apps.
Yeah.
Okay.
See.
Windows 10 1809. I just read an article the other day saying why it's not safe to search for updates on Windows 10, which just shocked me.
This is correct.
Don't be
a seeker.
Don't be that person. Just let go and let Windows.
I really have a problem with this. I really do. We should have asked Chris about this.
Oh yeah, we should have. We forgot that one. Right. I know. So if you want 1809, Windows 10 1809, all you have to do is go to Windows Update now, and you'll get it unless you have one of very few blockers there. So they're considering it broadly available. But what they mean is you manually still go get it, but now they're not throttling who can get it.
Right.
If you don't want it, don't be a seeker like me. I never look at Windows Update because I don't want it to come without it being pushed.
I go there. See, I'm compulsive. I go there all the time.
We taught people to do that.
Yep, I don't do it.
You're smart.
I'm scared. I just am like, let other people be the guinea pigs. I don't want to be that person.
Safe computing means don't look at Windows Update. That's so wrong.
That's crazy.
You know what? Don't even log in. If you want to be safe,
don't even use a computer.
Look at there's a pretty picture right on the login screen. Just look at it. See, don't do anything on the computer.
Yeah.
Oh well.
It's not yet available for businesses, though. They haven't crossed that line where they say, okay, businesses, it's safe to deploy it. They haven't hit that line yet, but this is still consumers. Go get it if you want it. I mean, businesses can go get it, too, if you really want it for some reason.
You know what's amusing to me is if you listen to Mac Break Weekly yesterday, all the crap the Apple people give Qualcomm. And then over here on the Windows side, people are going, come on, Qualcomm, give us a good processor. The 850's here. Come on, They're rooting for Qualcomm.
Yep.
Right.
It's so strange.
Mary Jo, if you haven't done this, did you watch the Qualcomm presentations on that day?
I watched some of it. I watched some of the.
They're worth watching. There's some cringeworthy moments for sure, like any tech event. This is a very interesting company, and their embrace of the PC is very interesting to me, and it appears to be very real and very full. Like they have a detailed roadmap for many years. They're serious about this. And when you look back at the original product they put out, the 835, which was designed for smartphones, and those computers that came out, the three of them, the performance was terrible, and there was some compatibility issues. Yeah. They've taken a step forward with the 850, which is the second-gen chip for PCs. So technically, I guess we could call it the first one specifically for PCs, but a kind of a modest update of the 845 for smartphones. And from a performance perspective, approximately 30% over the original 835 system. And what I found on the one computer I have that runs on this chipset is it's slow. Like a lot of like the Surface Go is slow, or like a Y series processor can be slow. But I think it's over a threshold where if you're okay with slightly pokey performance, the other benefits that it brings might be worth it to you, depending on your needs. The issue is this compatibility thing, right? 64-bit apps, desktop apps aren't going to run. One of the things they announced at the show, which we would have talked about probably 2 weeks ago, of course, is that Qualcomm is working to bring Chromium and Firefox to ARM64 native form. What that means is if you go to the web, to those websites, and you download those browsers from one of their computers, you will get the ARM64 version in the future. It's not available today. And for all of the compatibility stuff that I've complained about, I have to say, now that I've used this system for a couple of weeks, this is it. If they getting those browsers, I think, will solve the problem for most people. And obviously with the 8CX that's coming out next year, I think the performance finally goes over the top and they become an actual contender. The compatibility problem is still real, whether it's a driver for a printer or a scanner, or whether it's a specialty app like Photoshop Elements or something that just isn't going to work. But I think once they get the web browser piece, because the web browser is the number one application for virtually anybody, I think this platform starts to really make sense. I think it's like right on the cusp. Yeah, I think even today with the 850.
Yeah, with the HP MVX2 that was ARM-based, once I tried to put Chrome on there and get it to, because I use a lot of web-based apps, and I was just like,
yeah, it's terrible.
It's not great.
So the funny thing is, and it's not funny, but on Edge right now in this system launches immediately. It launches in less than a second, right? And so, of course, a lot of people say, well, just use Edge. Edge is artificially benefiting from its relationship with the operating system, right? There's a bunch of components that Edge uses that are already running in the OS. This is something that you can't do if you're Chrome or Firefox or whatever. And I don't like Edge, but I will tell you that the performance difference is startling. And I use a browser plugin called Momentum as my new tab page. And on my normal computers, it just loads. I don't think anything of it. It's a pretty picture. It has a couple links on the corner. On Windows 10 on ARM, you can watch this thing draw. Like there's a logo that appears on a white screen I've never seen before because it must go by so quick. But on this computer, you can see it appear. It sits there for a moment. The picture kind of blurts down. It takes like 5 seconds to load this screen. On Firefox, by the way, that takes about 3 seconds. So Firefox actually is a better choice maybe if you're concerned about performance and don't want to use Edge right now. But both of those browsers should be significantly faster in the near future once they become ported, to ARM64. And I think that's going to be huge. And then, of course, Chromium-based Edge should have the same benefits once it's integrated into the operating system, too.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah.
We all agree. Microsoft is going to let my people go.
Yeah. Charlton
Heston would be happy.
Yep. Yeah, Project Egypt is going to kill my people.
This is that little thing that emerged last year, right?
Yeah.
The little person in my menu bar.
Yeah.
So the problem is, a lot of people will look at this and they'll say, there they go again. Microsoft does this thing, and nobody uses it, and then they kill it. And the problem is like third-party services, right? Because the reason my people could be desirable is if I communicate, say, with Mary Jo every day. I might want a little Mary Jo face down in my taskbar. How awesome is that? And I could click on her face, and then it would give me stuff that I could do with Mary Jo, like contact her on Skype or send her an email or whatever. And actually, that's
an emoji.
Yep. No, this would be a non-moving static image of Mary Jo on my computer. The problem is that no third-party services ever signed on board for this scheme. In fact, Microsoft delayed this for one Windows version, partially because there were no third-party services, and then they released it without any eventually. There's a deeper problem with my people, though, and it's the same problem we see across the Microsoft stack, unfortunately. Because it's not just Microsoft, it's not just third-party services. It doesn't integrate with any Microsoft services either. And
whoops,
this is the thing. It's like it's not in the show notes, but one of the things that I think just came out today was Cortana on Windows 10 now, or Cortana, I guess, across the board, integrates with Microsoft To Do. People who have been using Cortana have been asking this for 2 years. Like, I'm glad it's there, but this should have happened, years ago, a long time ago. I think until yesterday or through yesterday, the only thing it integrated with from a to-do perspective was Wunderlist. So this is a problem, and I'm not saying, my people should have, worked or would have made sense for anybody or whatever. I turn it off every time I install Windows, but this is just something that was never supported even internally at Microsoft. So what did you think was going to happen to it?
Yeah. You know what, though? You know what I think is also happening is the whole Microsoft 365 thing taking effect here, because the Office team has their own thing going on with people, right? Like they use the Office Graph. They have people cards. They're tying them with LinkedIn. So I'm like, okay, you can't have my people, and they have nothing to do with each other. And you've got Windows and Office now.
But that's another example of something it could have integrated with. I mean, that could have been the thing in Windows that you use to access your people in Microsoft 365.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of problems.
I know. My guess was just like the Office team looked at this and they were like, what is this thing?
Yeah, this thing is stupid. Yep.
So I think we'll get people. I think we'll get people integrated somehow, but it might not be this way. It'll be a different way.
Yeah.
Probably through Office.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Speaking of Office, the Office app for Windows 10. What is that?
Yeah, I know. It sounds like it's this exciting thing, right? Like Office app for Windows 10. So if you know what My Office is, it's an app that's available today to Windows 10 users, and it lets you see all your Office 365 subscription benefits, and it shows you like, here, go download Word and go download Excel and PowerPoint because you have the rights to them. So this new Office app for Windows 10 is superseding this, and it's going to be available for any version of Office. So Office 365, commercial, consumer, the standalone Offices like Office 2016 and 2019, and even Office Online if you use that. So if you want this app, you can go get it. Not yet, because it's going to be tested with insiders first as of today, but sometime soon you're going to be able to go to the the Microsoft Store and get this and run it as an app if you want. And it'll kind of put everything that you use Office with together. So all the apps that you have the rights to, you'll see them in one place. You'll see your most frequently used documents or your latest documents there too. And the idea with this is kind of like what they're doing with Office.com right now, which is make it easier for people to use Office. Right now, it's like, how do you even sign into Office? Like, where are my documents? Are they in SharePoint? Are they on my PC? I don't even know where they are. So they're trying to make it look to users like, here's your one Office portal front end kind of thing, and here's all your stuff in one place. That's what it is.
All right.
Handy,
okay.
maybe.
Yeah. Okay.
Maybe. But Paul will
No.
be interested. It's a PWA, Paul.
Oh, okay. Actually, this is pretty cool.
Ew. You're so easy, Paul.
He's so easy to
So
get him excited.
easy.
Just say PWA.
PWA.
Easy. And then notes and tasks. They have a notes and tasks strategy.
Yes. Was that resolved?
Maybe.
very good?
No, I think they're trying to have a notes and task strategy. So I had this idea because I felt like there were all these different announcements from Microsoft about things related to note taking and tasks. And it just kept coming out from everywhere. And I'm like, there must be a strategy, right? Like there must be one team doing this somewhere. And there is. Laura Butler, who is best known for her championing of OneNote, is the head of this thing called Nota, Notes and Tasks. So if you go on my site and you want to read a Q&A that I did with Microsoft about this, it goes into detail about, what is this team? What are they trying to do? Where are they trying to integrate their different notes and task technologies? Just like Paul said, today they announced To-Do integrating with Cortana. That's something from this team, right? And the reason I was intrigued by this and wanted to know more is if you think about devices like Andromeda and Centaurus, you figure like there's got to be like a strategy for note taking, because note taking is going to be front and center on these things, right? And note taking also is very front and center with what they're doing with integrating the Android devices and with Windows. So I think they're evolving the strategy, and they have a strategy. They may not be ready to tell us exactly what the strategy is. That's my takeaway from the Q&A I had. It's like they want to tell us a little, but they don't want to tell us the whole thing yet. But yeah, I took a stab at it. So if you want to get kind of a high-level view of what they're doing, check out the article on my site about Nota, Notes and Tasks.
And just as a reminder, I part of this team is out in Berlin, right? Because this is the former Wunderlist guys, I guess.
That's right.
And
Marcus Ash.
I was out there, Marcus. Yep. And I visited Marcus and those guys this past summer. And remember, I saw the Sticky Notes app for iOS, which still hasn't come out, by the way. But I did see it. And again, same team. So To-Do and Sticky Notes are, it's like note taking and tasks. So there's a bunch of work happening there.
I mean, they really have. Come on, they have OneNote. What are they? Isn't that the strategy?
No, not really, because.
No, because
what about Planner and To-Do and Sticky Notes? Like all these things are ways you can like have a list of stuff to do, and so they have all these things that kind of overlap, but also integrate.
Or OneNote in many ways suffers from the classic Office productivity problem. It's kind of big and heavy,
Yeah.
And there's a lot of younger people, especially. But even like I use actually both Mary Jo and I technically use text editors, not word processors to write.
Right.
We don't use the world's flagship, word processor, Microsoft Word, which is bristling with features. But in some ways, that's part of the problem. It kind of gets in the way.
True.
And you might make the argument that maybe it's time for a rethink, for some people at least, of the note-taking stuff. There's always, this is the Microsoft thing, right? There are 1,100 features in OneNote that I'll never need. If you take out any one of them, there'll be hundreds of people complaining about it because that is the one feature they do need.
Right.
And that's the Microsoft conundrum. But, is there a simpler, we use OneNote for our notes here, Windows Weekly, we have for several years now. Is there a simpler way to do this? Does Microsoft have some other thing? Are we going to do our show notes on sticky notes?
No, please.
Probably not.
Probably.
Notepad, if anything. If you're going to switch off, you got to go to Notepad.
Notepad would work.
No, you need rich. You got to
Can
have.
you put links in Notepad?
No, you need links.
We need links. I click on those links. Oh man!
So I think I'm hearing Markdown Pad. That's what I'm hearing.
Markdown Pad. I like it.
How about VS Code? We could use it.
We actually could use VS Code, and somebody could write us a little Windows Weekly plugin for VS Code. It'd be so awesome.
Well, actually, all you need is the existing Markdown plugin, and you could do bold and italics and headings. And
Paul bleeds Markdown.
He does.
Yeah, he does.
I have a curious affinity with this, but
yeah. All right, time for the back of the book, and then we will. Oh, wait a minute. I'm sorry.
Jeez.
Yeah,
One
Brad.
more.
Brad has a scoop. Brad has a scoop. Okay, Brad, go ahead.
Brad is sitting on a mountain of information about Microsoft right now, by the way.
Where did he get this mountain of information?
I don't know, Leo. But the point is, he's kind of publishing it at different times. And so he has just come out with information about the future versions of the console, the xCloud stuff, the services. Like he's got kind of the whole roadmap here. But to me, I think maybe the most interesting bit perhaps is something called Game Core.
Ooh.
And if you think back to the Core OS stuff we were talking about earlier, which is an attempt to, componentize Windows down as much as possible and arrive at a simpler system, this is nothing like that. But it's it's basically an evolution of the existing UWP game platform where you can create developing. God, I'm like a dry thing in the back of my throat. Sorry. Where a developer can create. You can tell he's lying. He can't stop choking. Where a developer could write a game that runs on both Windows and the Xbox, and it's not actually that simple. But this apparently is going to enable that to be kind of a simpler experience for developers, which should improve the game situation on both platforms, right?
And has to do with containers.
And of course it does. Right, of course it does.
Right, he's got the mother load of Xbox code names over there.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yep.
Scarlet, Anaconda, Lockhart, Maverick, Anthem, Game Core. If you want to know those, go check that post out because I didn't even try to write that one up. I'm like, there's too many code names in there.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
CORE, right? Not CORPS.
CORE, Game Core.
All right, now we are going to go to the back of the book. This has been a fabulous episode, but we really do need to.
It has to end sometime.
Wrap it up here.
Yep.
All right.
Our sponsor for this segment of the show, Molecule. The air is so fresh in here. I'm very sensitive. We had the worst smoky air for so long. I actually started looking at the air quality index every day before I would come to work to know whether I could keep the windows rolled up or rolled down in my car. Fortunately, once I get to work, I've got the Molecule. And in fact, at home, I've got the Molecule too. Molecule is better than your everyday air purifier. This is a molecular air purifier. If you've got asthma or allergies, this is a lifesaver. Lisa has developed allergies when we moved to the country. I don't know if it's to the pollen or the dust, because we live on near a hillside and dust comes down. For whatever reason, she started waking up with headaches, and we tried a whole bunch of solutions. Finally, found the Molecule, solved it. In fact, I know when the Molecule's not running, or when we were on vacation, our nephew unplugged it, and we came back. We didn't turn it on that night. We didn't realize. She woke up with a headache. She said, "What's going on?" I said, "Oh, crud. Got to plug in the Molecule." So it is not a HEPA filter. HEPA filters were invented in the 40s to clear air by trapping particles. The Molecule does more. Molecule traps particles 1,000 times smaller than the ones a HEPA filter can capture. And it doesn't just capture them, it destroys them with its PICO technology. They call it photoelectrochemical oxidation. It goes well beyond the HEPA filter to both capture and eliminate allergens, mold, bacteria, viruses, even volatile organic compounds like the fumes from paint or the formaldehyde from new carpets, that kind of thing. Gone. It was technology funded by the EPA, extensively tested not only by real people like us, but verified by third parties and university labs. The University of South Florida's Center for Biological Defense, the University of Minnesota's Particle Calibration Labs. It's easy to use. There's just an on-off switch, kind of an electronic on-off switch on the top, although you can pair it to your smartphone using Bluetooth and Wi-Fi. They have apps for iOS and Android. The nice thing about that is you can control it. Sometimes I'm in bed and I will turn it up or down. It has different modes, different speeds depending on the needs. But also, it will automatically order filter replacements for you and cartridge replacements when you need them. So you can keep an eye on how it's doing. Molecule is really awesome. It is the king of air purifiers, and I want you to get one right now at molekule.com. If you use the code TWIT75 at checkout, you'll save $75. molekule.com. It worked so well in our bedroom. We got one for Michael, our 16-year-old, in his bedroom. We have one for the studio now too, because it's with the fires and everything, it's been a boon. When I get to work, the air is fresh and clean. The other day they were retarring the roof. And that tar smells terrible, but I could smell it in this office, but not in my main studio because of the Molecule. Actually, I need one for this office now, too. MOLE, I'll let you get yours because they sell out fast. I won't compete with you. molekule.com, molecule.com, spelled with a K. Promo code TWIT75 to save $75 on your first order. And we really thank Molecule, not only for supporting the show, but for making a product we use and love. Paul Thurrott, time for your tip of the week, Paul.
So, as you may know, one of the big controversies with this year's Surface Pro and Laptop 2 were that they didn't support Type-C ports for some reason.
Yeah.
They still have the Surface Connect port. So there's a third-party company called Jago Tech that now sells a $20 cable that lets you charge your Surface Laptop or Pro using a Type-C cable.
Nice.
Basically, it's like it has Surface
Adapter.
Connect on one end. And,
It's an adapter. Nice.
It's
and
an
it's
adapter.
$20, which is great.
Yeah. So I'm sure it's sold out by now, but now you know about it. One thing that won't be sold out is Xbox One S and Xbox One X have been actually go back to that page real quick. What does it say in stock? Yeah, see.
Expected to
It's
arrive
already
after
on stock.
Christmas, but they are still selling it, so that's good.
Yeah.
In stock January 19th. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. I think a lot of Surface guys were like, excellent, and jumped right on this
This is
thing.
brilliant. But just to be clear,
Yes.
it is a USB-C Audi, a male USB-C on the other end. Not
Yeah,
an
but what
innie,
that will-
so you can't, it's not, well, I thought you would connect this to your Surface connector and then you could charge your Surface with a Type-C cable. No.
Right. It's the actual cable. So what you would do is plug this into a power brick.
Right. So you need a Type-C
Which you
power.
might
actually,
have-
though, a lot of people do that. Okay, never mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's how I do a lot of Type-C charging. Okay. Cool.
Yeah, and if you have for example, my computer has a I guess you could do this. Type-C port in it, you could even charge it off your desktop computer.
Yeah. No, male makes sense. Okay, never mind. I take it back.
It seems like Xbox One S and Xbox One X. I still got this thing. Sorry, a little verklempt.
You need a molecule.
I know.
Send you a molecule, dude.
Need more La Croix. So, have been kind of on a perpetual sale. But what's Microsoft has really been doing is having these $100 off sales, and then they expire after a limited time. So, they're having another one. If you haven't purchased an Xbox console this year yet, this will be probably your last chance of the year to save this much money. That's the best ever price, by the way, on the Xbox. Actually, it's the best ever price on both of them because these are bundles. And so the cheapest bundle, I think, is $200 for Xbox One S. And you'll get some game or some games with that. And then the cheapest Xbox One X is $399. And that also, depending on the bundle, will come with games as well. Good deal.
There's a store in town, a nostalgia gaming store that's selling the original Xbox.
Oh, jeez.
And it has all the games. It's like going into a GameStop from, 2004. It's got shelves.
We call that that's the tank.
The tank.
Wasn't that like a Celeron-based, Intel Celeron-based system with an actual hard drive?
Oh, yeah.
No, this was pre-Red. Red Ring of Death was the Xbox 360. This one,
okay.
I think this one was very reliable, if I'm not mistaken. I don't think they ever had any problems with this.
And an app pick. Let's really blow it out to the bare walls.
So people who are interested in testing the new Edge version that's running on Chromium should sign up for the Edge Insider program, like I mentioned a few weeks back. But if you want to get a look at what this kind of thing might look like, you should check out Brave.
I really I like this browser. It's very interesting. I don't use it day in, day out, but it's intriguing.
Well, this just got a lot more interesting because they just did the full switch over to Chromium, and that brings a lot of stuff to the table. And if you kind of look at it, I think it might be interesting for people to compare this browser to Chrome and see what's there and what isn't there. So to give you an idea of what is there is the feature I love about Chrome, which is the ability to go to a website like Gmail or Google Calendar, whatever, save it as a shortcut to your desktop, and then run it as its own window, as if it were an app. You can pin it to your taskbar and you just run it like an app. So on my system right now, I don't have these all pinned, but I have, it's Google Inbox, not Gmail, but Outlook.com, Google Calendar, and Twitter are all the PWA/web apps. And they're in both Brave and in Chrome, and they can run side by side. Not that you would do that. But the advantage of Brave over, say, Chrome is that it's not Google. Right. They've literally stripped out all of the Google trackers and all that stuff. And so
got ad blocking built in.
Yep. Oh, yeah. There's all kinds of other reasons to choose Brave. But
it also has its own like Bitcoin, doesn't it?
Yeah. So, right. I don't think that's ever going to go anywhere, but it has a system where you can reward content creators if you want to. It's sort of an opt-in thing. I don't think it's going to take off, but I give them credit for trying. I think I've mentioned Brave in the past, but this thing's it's available on mobile. The big issue with it is there's no seamless cross-device sync. So one of the nice things you get on Chrome is you sign into your Google account, your bookmarks come up, your passwords come up if that's what you want. You go to mobile or you go to another PC, and those things are all there as well. You can kind of work around it, depending on how you work. If you have all that stuff in Chrome, let's say, you could import it into the browser from Chrome, and you could do that on different computers. It'd be fine. But as you add passwords and stuff, they're not going to be saved. So I believe they're working on a system to allow you to do this seamlessly. There's a semi non-seamless way to do it now. I don't want to get into the details, but it's just not a very good system. But it's temporary, and they're going to replace it. But I think the primary point today is just, I think we're all a little curious here in the Microsoft space about what this kind of Edge thing will look like. And Brave right now, it looks a little bit like Chrome for sure. There are certain, UI similarities. They did adopt some of the UI stuff. They have their own skins and themes, and it does dark mode, by the way, which Chrome doesn't do. But I think this is an interesting peek at, especially if you're familiar with Chrome, like what comes over when you go Chromium. Extensions come over, like Momentum, the thing I mentioned
nice.
earlier. It's something it's worth looking at.
So I just downloaded Brave, and when I opened the installer, I got this pop-up from Windows. To help protect your PC, we suggest you get a verified app from the store, or you could use Microsoft Edge, the faster, safer browser for Windows 10.
Yikes.
Default button, open Microsoft Edge.
So, by the way, if you don't mind, click that last thing that says
change my app recommendations. What is that?
Just go to the settings app, and it's going to be right at the top. Right at the top. See that?
Oh, I could turn that off.
Yeah, that's not the default. So I suspect you turned that on, and that's why you saw that.
Really? That's not the default?
Yeah.
Why would I turn on Warn Me before installing apps from outside the store?
By the way, it's not necessarily a bad thing to do.
Yeah.
If only because it gives you that 1 second pause where you're like, okay, I did download something from the internet. Is this safe?
Right.
It's Brave. It's Brave, and nobody knows who Brave is. But I mean, I think Brave is safe, but it's not. I've enabled that on a few computers.
So if I run it now, it won't do that. I run the installer now. Okay. So I apologize. That's just me. Didn't happen to anybody.
Unless I believe you have to turn that on.
Enable that.
Yeah. It's something they added with and then evolved since Windows 10s, because Windows 10s has that fourth setting, which is you only allow stuff from the store, but you can't turn it off.
Yeah, now it's installing without that. So okay, good.
Yeah, it's not like it detected like a, you get that Windows Defender smart screen thing where it's like, this might not be safe.
Won't install that, whatever you do. Wilbur.
This is an unsigned exe. Are you sure you want to do this?
Enterprise pick of the week.
Well, since we talked a lot about virtualization and containers, thought it would be good to pick something about the Windows Virtual Desktop. This is something Microsoft announced at Ignite, but they didn't give us a whole ton of information about it. It was kind of like, we've got this new virtual desktop thing powered by Azure. Yeah, it's coming. Don't worry about it. On Petri, though, Russell Smith wrote a really interesting post about the multi-user version of Windows 10 that powers the Windows Virtual Desktop. So if you go over to Petri and look up Windows Virtual Desktop, you'll find this post. He unearthed a little more information than was disclosed at Ignite, including some things about how they're moving towards optimizing this to run Office 365 Pro Plus really well, which involves how they're optimizing Windows Desktop Search for multi-user. He's got lots of details about the different virtualization hosts that Microsoft is going to support going forward. It's a timely and good read, given we're kind of all puzzling over futures of virtualization and containers. So go check it out. It's the Windows Virtual Desktop explainer that Russell Smith wrote on Petri.com this week.
Nice. Somebody in the chat room said Chicago should be the code name of the week, given the shirts you just got.
I mean, actually, wasn't that logo? That logo was pre-Windows 95 too, wasn't it?
Oh, was it? It was the
I think that was the logo for Windows 3.
Oh, all right.
Oh, was it really?
NT? Yeah, Windows NT when it first came out made it kind of like a 3D block effect.
Oh, right.
But
it was kind of like going off like that.
The same logo.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yep. I think you might be right.
You have another city in mind.
I do. But pertinent to our discussion today also. The code name is Madrid. Madrid was the code name for Windows Sandbox that came out today. And it's interesting that they chose Madrid as the code name for this, because they have other container-based technologies that Microsoft has been developing that also have Spanish code names. So it seems like everything they're doing in this space is using a Spanish code name. Windows Defender Advanced Threat Protection was codenamed Seville. And Windows Defender Application Guard, which is the way to isolate potentially suspicious sites in the browser, in the Edge browser, not an app, but just a site, was codenamed Barcelona. So they've got a theme going there with Spain for some reason in all of these related products.
Is it perhaps because nobody expects the Spanish Inquisition? No.
That could be it.
No.
Or something else.
Let's have a beer.
Let's have a beer. Let's have a Christmas beer, because this is our last show before Christmas.
Yeah, it is.
Christmas beer.
Yes. So a very famous Christmas beer that you can find in many places is called Corsendonk Christmas Ale. The way I describe it is, if fruitcakes were good and they were beer,
that's awesome.
This would be this beer. You taste all the good things.
Could you dunk a fruitcake in this?
If you like fruitcake, you probably could dunk it in this. So this is a Belgian strong dark ale, 8.5%. It tastes like what you would think a Christmas beer might taste like cherries, dark fruit, dark sugar. Very Christmassy kind of flavors for baking, but made into a delicious ale in Belgium. Surprisingly, Belgian strong ale made in Belgium. It's brewed right now, I believe, by Brasserie du Bac, but the Browergy, is that how you say it? Browergy Korsendonk is listed still as the brewery behind this beer.
There's absolutely zero chance that's how you say that, but don't feel bad because nobody
knows.
from this
I can't
country
pronounce
could ever
Even Dutch
pronounce
people
that
can't agree.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not even going to pretend I can do a good version of that word.
The brewery word that ends in a J.
Yeah.
Yes.
Exactly. Yeah. Don't struggle with that.
Don't even try it. Yeah. Don't try it at home. But do try the beer because it's quite good.
I'm surprised gin isn't a bigger deal around Christmas, what with its fur-like.
Yeah.
Yeah, true.
Paul Thurrott, Mary Jo Foley, I hope you have the most wonderful of holidays. We're going to give you 2 weeks off because...
Is that true?
Just one. No, that's not true. Sorry.
God damn it.
I lied. We're going to give you 13 days off. One day short.
We'll take it.
Next week, the 27th, or is that right? 26th is the day after Christmas. So the unboxing, or Boxing Day, as they call it, we will do the best of Windows Weekly. It's going to be a lot of fun. A lot of great clips from the year gone by. But I'm sorry to say, I think January 2nd, we're back in studio. So we'll be doing it then.
Oh, we're going to be nice and groggy on January 2.
I'm not that sorry to say. I think it's a good thing. I don't want to be away too long.
No.
You'll find Thurrott at Thurrott.com, THURROTT.com. His books are at leanpub.com. Mary Jo Foley's at ZDNet. Her blog is all about Microsoft.com. And, of course, you'll find them here most Wednesdays around 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern Time, 1900 UTC. Thanks to our special guest, Chris Capossela, today, CMO of Microsoft.com. It's great to have him on. Microsoft, period, no .com. And I think we wish you all a happy, happy holiday, a wonderful new year, and we will see you in 2019 with episode, kind of conveniently, 602, because 601 is next week. I just realized the best of it has its own.
It's like a leap year or something.
Yeah. We're going to skip 601. No, we'll do it. It's just a best of. What are your plans? You both staying home, or are you going to Rhode Island, Mary Jo? Or
No, I'm going to go see my mom in Boston.
Nice. Very nice.
I am also going to Boston, not to see Mary Jo's mom.
That's good.
But yeah, I'll see my mother and my friends.
Going to Dedham. Beautiful downtown Dedham. All right, well, have a great holiday.
Thank you.
We'll see you
too.
next time. Thank you on Windows Weekly. Bye-bye.